This article claims that the BBC is taking Huawei money to fund overseas journalism. Huawei's questionable new corporate partnership with BBC. BBC.com adverts say it's paid and presented by Huawei. Adverts gush how UNESCO and Huawei are closing the digital divide globally. Advert writes glowingly about Huawei's tech initiatives. Content made by BBC's sponsored content team StoryWorks. Huawei partnership was first announced 3 years ago. This is what the article claims. And Huawei allegedly aided Chinese state in surveillance technology. Its surveillance technology targets Uyghur minority population, sanctioned by the US in 2019, barred by the UK in 2020 over security concerns. All of this is contained in this article that appeared first, viewers, in August last year. So that's about 5 months ago. That, incidentally, is also about the time it takes to make a documentary of the nature of which the BBC aired. Now, is there a direct correlation? We don't know. But we will speak to Mr. Jethmalani shortly. In fact, Times now decided to investigate a bit more, and we found that BBC's own webpage made glowing sponsored content for Huawei, which it claims shows the real story of the company. Now watch this, viewers. Watch this clip.
Huawei is a $100 billion company. Most people think that Huawei has come from nowhere, when in actual fact it's taken 30 years to get to where they're going. Mr. Ren, the founder, lived through a very difficult time in China's history, which included famine, the Cultural Revolution. He'd had a pretty hard life.
History has determined the existence of Huawei. If China didn't open up, Huawei would not exist. If private companies would not be allowed, Huawei would not exist. It fit perfectly the bill, what was needed at that time for a Chinese entrepreneur to give the push towards what will become one of the biggest telecom companies in the world.
Viewers, this is a promotional feature put out by the BBC, waxing eloquent about the founder and the company and its mission. Now, if you dig a bit more, you will find several articles which reveal how BBC's own journalists have opposed their own platforms. The BBC's ties with Huawei. Sample some of these. BuzzFeed.com quotes, viewers, quotes BBC journalists who are protesting this tie-up. What does it say? BBC division made glowing sponsored content for Huawei, and BBC News reporters are horrified. BBC journalist said, "I nearly threw up." This was, viewers, what BuzzFeed put out on 13th November 2019. Subsequently, Verdict, another web zine, on October 2021 said senior BBC executive Gavin Allen takes a role at Huawei. Head of BBC News programs recruited as Huawei's executive editor-in-chief. Viewers, there is yet another reference. Deadline, another web zine on 21st December 2002 says BBC StoryWorks has partnered with at least 18 Chinese clients. So this is BBC's liaison department, which obviously connects with big companies to get advertisements and produce advertisements and advertorials which are paid for. Senior BBC journalists have appealed directly to managers to sever StoryWorks ties to China, but said their pleas had fallen on deaf ears. All of this is easily, viewers, discoverable. You just need to go and Google. Viewers, Huawei has a reputation which is notorious globally, and given that it supposedly subscribes to superior journalism standards, the BBC shouldn't have done business with Huawei. I'm not just saying this, the BBC's own journalists are saying this. There was even an influential meeting between a top manager of the BBC and Huawei that created a massive stink within the BBC ecosystem. Now, here's what we mean about Huawei's past. The fact is that Huawei was founded by Ren Zhengfei in 1987, and you heard that on the BBC documentary. The concern is Zhengfei is a former PLA officer with government links. The People's Liberation Army officer, that's what is said. The fact is that the founder's daughter was arrested in December 18 in Canada. The concern was the US claims she helped Huawei dodge US-Iran sanctions and that she was involved in deep espionage. The fact is that China passed the 2017 National Intelligence Law, which made certain stipulations with regards to any company working in the telecom space. The concern is that it must support, collaborate in national intelligence work. This is a diktat to that company or any company. The fact is that the US, Australia, UK, Canada, New Zealand, France have banned its 5G equipment. Yes, viewers, Huawei can't supply material for 5G technology. The concern is experts red flag possible cyber espionage by the firm. The fact is that Huawei phones are banned by networks like Verizon and AT&T. The concern is that Huawei was labeled a security threat by agencies. The fact is that the British Telecom, which is a telecom communications company in the UK, is removing Huawei parts from its 4G network. The concern is National Cyber Security Center alarm on risks to network. And here is the BBC, viewers, accepting money for its overseas work from Huawei. The fact is that part of projects for Saddam's Iraq and Taliban in Afghanistan. The concern is expertise in bugging telecom and computer systems. India has kept out Huawei out of the 5G network auctions. Why? Because new conditions under a security directive were not met. So viewers, here is the background really, and I want to go straight across to Mr. Jethmalani. Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani is with us. He's also a member of parliament with the Bharatiya Janata Party in the Rajya Sabha. He's also a leading lawyer. So he knows a thing or two about the facts as he puts them out. And he's not given to exaggeration. Mr. Jethmalani, you have come across obviously these articles linking the BBC to Huawei. Why should we be worried? And why do you call this an attempt at taking money to do the bidding of the Chinese state?
Well, clearly, Rahul, I mean, now you've expanded even further with all the information you've just brought out in your prelude about the extensive links, right? I mean, these links are really deep now and intensive. Intensive, extensive, whatever words you use. Now, given all that, right, and the history, what are they doing this for? They're doing this to promote, and they're openly proclaiming, right, how enamored they are, what kind of work they're doing for Huawei, right? Now, the agenda which they have shown qua India in all their overseas broadcasts has always been anti-India. Why? This is not founded on any solid evidence. Take the documentary. The documentary is in the face of Supreme Court verdicts. Why would you challenge the Supreme Court's findings on what really happened in the Gujarat riots and what was the role of then CM Modi in those riots? Was he behind them? Was he in any way connected with them? When a clean chit had been given by a searching inquiry by both investigating and judicial agencies. What is your motive in saying this, apart from the fact that this is a 2002 event? Why are you raking up in 2023? What is the reason? And 3, you are concealing the source of your funds very cleverly. What you don't take these funds now from Huawei, right? After Huawei has been sanctioned in 5G trials and has become some kind of a pariah because it has spy network capabilities, and many countries have said they're a security threat, including the UK itself, which is why the home country of BBC also banned it. Now, given all that, the money you are taking is being taken in a very clandestine fashion. You are now taking Huawei money in a company called Storyworks. It's an overseas entity. You're not taking it in the UK now. you don't deny your previous links with, you're quite brazen about your previous links with them. But since the sanctioning of Huawei, you are now taking your money in a foreign entity owned by you called Storyworks, which, as you have pointed out in your prelude, right, has been castigated, right, for not only taking the money, right, but also taking it from a state which you should not be taking it from, in view of the fact that that state is an oppressor of people whose causes you are sometimes championing, i.e. the Uyghurs. So, all this adds up, right, to an extremely diabolical scenario where actually this is circumstantial evidence, right?
Yeah, circumstantial.
The money is there, the money trail is there.
But many
what are you doing in return? It's your agenda.
Okay, many people will say, Mr. Jethmalani, looking in, and if I play devil's advocate, I mean, you're the advocate here, but if I were to play the devil's advocate and say that, look, you're doing this to justify your ban or the purported order that has been put out by the government to ban the BBC's documentary in India, you're building a case for that, number one. Number two, that yes, timing aside, what's the problem if a media house differs with a Supreme Court verdict and continues to expound on what it believes was overlooked by the Supreme Court or what it thinks was perhaps not considered by the Supreme Court? Of course, you've been part of those cases, so you probably know better than I. And number three, most importantly, that look, at the end of the day, many media houses around the world take money. That doesn't mean that their outlook is in any way jaundiced by that.
Right. So we are now proponents of the BBC in this country, including those who have gone to court, are wrapping themselves in the freedom of expression flag, right? But you have to be very careful. If those who are using freedom in this country come with motives, right, and the payment of money is something which, first of all, before releasing this documentary, did they make disclosure that we are being funded very heavily over a period of time by a Chinese state-owned enterprise which has been accused in many countries and banned because it provides spy network facilities for the Chinese state? Have these people just been blinded by the fact, I mean the proponents of the BBC documentary have been blinded by the fact that this happens to be a foreign organization with a historical reputation undeserved anymore, such as the BBC? Have they done enough due diligence? Is the money factor not something which should raise their eyebrows? A. B, as I said earlier, what about the timing? Why now? This is a 2002 incident. Why are you deferring from the Supreme Court so many years after? What is the reason for bringing it in the public domain? Right now, we are entering election years now. The next 2 years are heavily laden with elections in this country. State and center next year. Right? What are you trying to do? Third, it suits Chinese interests, right? Because in this particular documentary, you have tried to inflame passions between two communities, right? You now want to revive something which is buried and closed on weighty evidence by the Supreme Court. You are now trying to fuel discontentment among a minority community.
Okay. So you're destabilizing the country is what you're saying.
All this adds up to the fact.
Right.
You are going to create a serious law and order and public order situation in this country.
Right.
And you're doing it out of mala fide motives. Your motives are not clean, given timing, and not only that, you have antecedents against India.
Okay.
As recently up to 2021, you were publishing the Indian map without Kashmir. Who did that please? Our enemies. Who are those enemies? The enemy state for India, China. Are they not pleased that Kashmir is not a part of India? You are taking money and publishing those maps. You had to withdraw that because the Indian government called you out in 2021 and you apologized for it. But you are still unrepentant on other matters. Earlier you've been taking the Indian army apart. You've been accusing them practically of genocide, right?
Okay.
In Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay, so you're stringing
Now,
together a
you are
large
doing
number of
something
narratives.
else.
Okay,
The new
so let me
agenda
ask you.
is election year coming for,
Final question, Mr. Jim. I understand. I understand where you're coming from, and the way you've painted it does seem that it is a dire situation. Now, I just want to ask you this. It's important. We all know the BBC employees themselves have been horrified, to quote them, and they nearly threw up at this tie-up. So it's been known. Why hasn't the Indian government, therefore, proscribed the BBC from broadcasting in our country if it is anti-India in its outlook? I mean, this would then amount to a serious security lapse.
I agree with you, and I think this should be the last straw. This latest narrative should be the last straw. It should have been done a long time ago. It wasn't done, and that's unfortunate, but it's not too late now. Because this is something which is aimed at destabilization. It is aimed at disharmony. And Rahul, it's about time the Indian government now takes up the cudgels and bans it. They have to first deal with the matter in the Supreme Court. They have to expose this freedom of expression constitutional article of faith in the Supreme Court first. Then they have to think about banning this pernicious organization which is heavily funded by the Chinese. And I want, all these people who are talking about freedom of expression, right, and going to the Supreme Court only to malign Prime Minister Modi, right? Now that you've learned that this institution is clandestinely funded by an extension of the Chinese state, i.e. Huawei, right? Are you going to think twice now about all these steps? And secondly, right, if you are concerned about Muslim oppression, right, are you not concerned that the Chinese state which funds this institution has done enormous injustice? It has indulged in brainwashing and genocide of the Uyghur minority in China. Does that not upset you? Okay. Where is your hypocritical morality?
Okay, well, Mr. Jethmalani making a point there, elaborate one against the BBC and building a case against the BBC's outlook. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jethmalani. Of course, time will tell if a case can be made out by the government on the back of what you're claiming. And I'm sure you're going to talk within the party and speak to perhaps the INB minister and other stakeholders to take action, even perhaps the Home Minister. But we've come to a point of inflection. Thank you very much, Mr. Jethmalani. We've come to a point of inflection, viewers, where many people are now going to question the motives on the back of what Mr. Jethmalani has gone public with. Viewers, I just want you to very quickly also pay attention to what the Russians said today. The Russians have accused BBC of waging a disinformation war. And let me also tell you, viewers, that this company that is allegedly connected to the Chinese deep state has been flagged, red flagged, barred from some of the biggest democracies, some of the most active and open democracies in the world. But first, listen to what the Russians had to say today.
I'm not sure that this is a question to us, because this is a question addressed to Delhi, and our Indian friends has already made a comment on this matter. And I would like to draw your attention that this situation is yet another example how BBC wages an information war against Russia as well as against other centers of force. And I would like to draw your attention that a few years later we understand that BBC wages a war even within the British establishment, being an instrument of and reflecting the interests of one group against the other. So we need to treat it this way. It is an independent it is not an independent broadcasting company, but a dependent broadcasting company, which neglects very often the basic fundamental requirements to the profession of journalists.
Well, viewers, in just a few moments, I'm going to give you more hard facts. Remember, on this show, we always empower the viewer so that they can go away feeling that they have a complete and comprehensive picture. Now, viewers, it's not just the Russians. The Chinese have been accused of trying to destabilize many other countries. The UK has accused them, the US, Australia, Taiwan, New Zealand, and Canada are some of these. And I'll come, viewers, to all those facts in just a few moments. Let's open this up and let's ask some basic questions. Varis Pathan joins us on the show. We also have, of course, others tonight, like Lokesh Jindal of the Congress. And from the left, we are represented by Mr. Srivastava. Lokesh Jindal, the questions are straightforward to you tonight. Huawei has been connected now to the BBC. I'm not saying it, the BBC's own journalists say it. That for overseas broadcasting needs, money comes from Huawei, among others. In fact, there are 18 other Chinese corporations. I'm not saying it again. BBC's own employees have said this publicly. Please Google and you will see it. They're on record. So, Mr. Jindal, are you supporting today? Unknowingly or knowingly, I don't know. Because your bosses have signed an MOU with the Chinese Communist Party, and I'll show you those pictures in just a few moments. You'll remember them a decade ago. Are you therefore part of an elaborate campaign, sponsored perhaps by China, to undermine India's unity? Is this what is happening? And given the fact that you have supported moves in the Supreme Court to challenge the ban, would you now reconsider, given the fact that these details have come out? Mr.
Yes, good evening, Rahul. Right now we are complaining that BBC is working at the behest of certain private companies and political ideologies. But I want to ask a question. Is our Indian media free? When we talk about the World Press Freedom Index, our rank has slipped down to 150. Now you are ranking up Supreme Court's judgment. What about the Indian media, which was criticizing the Supreme Court when it made its remark on Nupur Sharma, the way she had communalized the situation? Where was the Supreme Court then? Aren't we hypocritical? Answer my question. Is Indian media free from any form of
if you can come up with if you can show that certain organizations which have been banned by the Indian state are funding Indian media, especially mainstream media, then come to the table and talk. Don't speak in generalities, because I'll tell you, if I started speaking in generalities, then there are certain anti-India elements. And Mr. Iyer will tell you, Mitra Iyer will tell you, that there are certain Indian news portals that are funded by agents that are anti-India.
Then,
and I agree with you. The point is that your party also supports those media organizations here in this country.
No.
Oh yes. Your party, the Congress party, your party bosses, excuse me, sir. If you're speaking about them, then you're part of the problem, sir. Mr. Jindal.
No, I'm speaking as an ordinary Indian.
Because the Congress party supports certain media organizations vehemently, and those media organizations, I won't go into names tonight. 1 minute. I won't go into names tonight. But those media organizations have been red flagged as receiving funds from those that are wanting to undermine our stability, territorial integrity, and our democracy. Will you tonight tell me, therefore, Mr. Jindal, will you tonight tell me and put your hand on your heart that that isn't the case?
Rahul, there's a saying, "Jab saiyan ho kotwal to dar gahega." Now the state agencies, they have their investigative wings with themselves. They are going to put whatever facts suits their convenience. But every layman knows, every one of all the panelists over
Sir,
here
is it
know,
not true?
you put
Okay,
your
okay, one
hand
second,
on
one
your heart
second.
and
Let
tell
me tell
is
you.
our Indian
I knew
media
this would happen, that the
completely
Congress...
free?
Okay, I knew, sir, that the Congress would try once again to take us down some rabbit hole. So let me now bring you, I'm not saying this, viewers, foreign democracies, well-established democracies have said this about China and China's attempts to infiltrate and destabilize. I start with the United Kingdom. Half of the retweets by then Ambassador Liu Xiaoming came from fake Twitter accounts. A study by Oxford Internet Institute and Associated Press document 2021. Viewers, this was done to try and undermine election campaigns in the UK. In the US, China has spent over 6 years, about $280 million to influence US politics. It seeks to shift narratives in its favor and promote pro-Beijing politicians. Sometimes it just sowing chaos and falsehoods. Council on Foreign Relations report to US Justice Department 2022. Viewers, if China is today using, I'm not saying it, BBC employees have said it, Huawei, an alleged and black-flagged organization to fund the BBC, why shouldn't we be suspicious of what the BBC's agenda might be? It's a legitimate question. In Australia, Beijing-linked donors paid prominent politicians to shape Australian foreign policy favorably towards China. The Diplomat says this in 2017. The Council on Foreign Research put this out, viewers. In Taiwan, before the 2020 president posed, Chinese officials reportedly instructed Taiwanese media to promote its favored candidates. China has increased its disinformation and other influence efforts targeting Taiwan. This is again the Council on Foreign Relations, viewers, putting this out. In New Zealand, China supported business people taking control of much of the local Chinese language media. Can you imagine, viewers? Yan Jiang, who spent 15 years in PLA's intelligence, was elected to parliament in 2011. Can you believe that, viewers? He was even elected to parliament. This is New Zealand. In Canada, China covertly funded at least 11 federal candidates in 2019 elections. Also, pro-China agents posed as residents to spark protests to stop the mineral extraction. This is again part of the Diplomat 2022. Viewers, this is very well documented. And are we to believe that the Chinese would spare India? Mr. Mitra Iyer?
Thank you, Rahul. So, there's many aspects to this, but first to answer Mr. Jindal's question about, criticism versus a Supreme Court judgment. Remember what happened in the Nupur Sharma case was the judges exceeded their brief talking about guilt and things like that, which was not in the ambit out there. Right? They were judging something totally different and they decided to pronounce things on totally different. Now notice none of these people, including Mr. Jindal who's guffawing, has been able to find a single procedural lapse in the court.
Sir,
has anyone found any kind... Excuse me, sir, I did not interrupt you. Now, please do not interrupt me.
No, you took my name.
None of these people...
That's why I'm interrupting.
No, I did not. I had not yielded to you. I called your name, but I have not yielded to you. Thank you. No, you will not get to interrupt me.
When you're observing your remarks, please...
No, you don't get to talk. Rahul, can you please mute him?
One second. Mr. Jindal, I'll give you the time to respond to him. Let him finish his point. Let him finish. I always do it, you know this. Yeah, go ahead.
Now notice, none of these people have ever been able to find a procedural flaw in what the court said. Alright, everything is court, till the point the final judgment is delivered. Now, process and procedure kisi bhi cheez mein violate hua hai in the Supreme Court verdict. And mind you, it has gone through several appellate stages. Has any one of the processes been criticized? There, the criticism in the Nupur Sharma case, the criticism started right at the beginning. But let's now come to the BBC. I just wanted to bring this up since he brought up that thing. Let us come to the BBC. You see, we are focusing too narrowly on China. The BBC is a complete web of a lack of accountability, supineness and conflict of interest. You see, it has a large population. It has a large population of employees who are British of Pakistani origin. Okay, it's especially in the research and editorial staff. I would suggest people go look up the BBC reports. For some reason, they seem to have removed the latest report. The link is broken. I accessed it yesterday. Today, the link seems broken. But you can go through their diversity thing and see the number of Pakistani British in their staff, number one. Second, we all know exactly how leftists have infiltrated every single aspect of journalism and the humanities. The humanities controlled by the left, we know this. Third, remember that this is a company that has advocated for every single regime change, claiming it was absolutely necessary. Do you remember that time when, the Iraq war started? Of course, they advocated for the weapons of mass destruction, which nobody found. They were claiming it was absolute proof. But then, when the invasion actually started from the south, from the Basra region, they were claiming that Saddam Hussein's troops were literally firing their guns point blank, their howitzers point blank into the crowds. Now, anybody who knows howitzers knows the amount of time they take to reload. That was simply physically impossible. But I still remember Tim Sebastian on the news doing all of this. Okay. Right. So, even though they are leftist, even though they have a high population of Pakistani Muslims in their employees, they are not independent. They very frequently spread the British government line. The fourth issue here is the complete lack of accountability. Because if you own a TV in Britain, you have to pay TV tax. Okay, it doesn't matter if you watch the BBC or not. You have to pay TV tax, which is basically a tithe on you, which the money goes to the BBC. So they get money, no accountability, nothing of the sort, whatever employment practices you want. Fifth, if you want to see how their political inclination goes, they have been relentlessly attacking Rishi Sunak and his Muslim head of the party, of the Conservative Party, Mr. Zahawi. Why? Because they want to keep propping up this Labour narrative that, Muslims can't be part of the Conservative Party. They can only be part of the Labour Party. So they play their own politics. They are compromised in intent. They are compromised in composition. This Huawei angle is just one more angle. Remember, Huawei at best contributes 10 to 15% of their motives. All their motives, if you line them up, from their ethnic composition to their political ideology, to their susceptibility and that lack of accountability, all show you exactly why the BBC would want to target Modi.
Okay, well...
Right. Last thing, if you allow me just 30 seconds more, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. What was new in that report, Rahul? Exactly zero. The only thing new in that report was allegedly this FCO report, Foreign and Commonwealth Office report. And then when Jack Straw was interviewed about it, he said we didn't actually find anything. It was our people who went and spoke to quote-unquote reliable sources who told them this was the case.
Okay, so it's all...
They weren't even sources in the government.
It was dressed up, you're saying. It was dressed up.
Yeah.
And therefore, because it was not credible and because it was low-level intelligence, it was never made public. But now... it was never taken seriously. It was never raised with anybody. And Jack Straw, viewers, that beacon of rectitude, lied about Iraq's WMDs, by the way. A large number of Muslims, millions of Muslims died because of Jack Straw's lies. And people like Waris Pathan support him.
250,000 Muslims.
250,000 died and are continuing.
Most of them children. Most of them underage children.
And people like Waris Pathan will support Jack Straw's Foreign Affairs Department's report. Is that so, Mr. Pathan? The Foreign Affairs report prepared under Jack Straw is more important to you than India's own Supreme Court? Sir.
Well, Rahul, I was just listening to Mr. Jethmalani. Mr. Jethmalani is a member of parliament and a senior advocate himself. If he has got the evidence to show or to suggest that he was supporting the BBC to create a false propaganda by making a documentary, why does he not move the Honorable Supreme Court, file a counter affidavit in the petition which is being filed,
he will be doing
which is kept for hearing?
He will be doing
bring the facts before the Honorable Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will pass an order.
He told us he will be doing it.
Very good. Let the Supreme Court decide then.
So let me come back to you. No, don't divert. Don't divert.
The BBC,
Pathan Saab, BBC's own employees are saying.
Yes.
And what are they saying? We are horrified that they nearly threw up at the tie-up between BBC and Huawei. Why would they be wanting to throw up? Why would they be horrified, sir?
Let that will be decided by the Supreme Court. What happened there? I am concerned about my freedom of expression.
The Supreme Court doesn't
I follow
decide.
the Constitution. I live in democracy.
Right.
I follow the Constitution. I follow the democracy.
Right.
Constitution has given me right, freedom of expression, and I am entitled to watch a movie of my choice. I am entitled to watch a documentary, whichever I feel like.
You are
Under what
absolutely
provision of law can the government prevent me from watching this documentary?
You are absolutely right.
Under what provision of law? My
You are
question is
absolutely
simple.
right.
And if
you are absolutely right, Pathan Sahab. We have no quibble with that. I have
just
told
give
you.
me 10 more
that
seconds, Rahul. I just want to ask a question to you.
Pathan Sahab, I want to ask you this
just
question.
10 seconds and I will finish.
No, I want to ask a question to you.
10 seconds,
okay.
yes.
Sir, I just want to ask a question. Please let me ask. Because you have answered.
10 seconds, Rahul. If tomorrow somebody comes out.
I'll give you 1 minute to answer, not 10 seconds. You can take 1 minute,
Just
1.5 minutes. So I want to ask you, Pathan Sahab, simple question. Forget about the ban for the moment. That the Supreme Court will look after. I'm not in favor of the ban. I don't think anyone here is in favor of any bans. Okay. The fact is that the BBC is being accused of taking money from Huawei, a company that is thought to be linked to the deep state in China, the Communist Party in China, promotes Chinese interests. The BBC's own employees have a problem with this. Isn't it a possibility, I'm only asking you, is it a possibility that the Chinese could have influence over the BBC's editorial possibility? It's a simple open-ended question. I'm not making an accusation. Is it a possibility? Otherwise, why would BBC's own employees be horrified?
Yes. I will answer.
Huh.
I will answer to your question, Rahul. Supposingly, I don't allege, I don't say that you are doing that. Suppose somebody comes up with a report alleging that Times Now is being funded by certain entity in China and they are using it to promote Modi, to create false propaganda against the minorities of the country, to create hatred in the country, to glorify BJP. What legal steps will you take against that entity? The only step you can take is to file an affidavit, to move before the Honorable Supreme Court. The courts will decide. Or will you come before the channel and you pass a judgment and you be judgmental, you become the Supreme Court judge? You will wait for this. Similar is the position today.
I don't understand the question.
If somebody has alleged that UAE is supporting the BBC.
Sir, isn't it a fact?
मैं तो आप पे allegation कर रहा हूँ, मैं तो आपके बारे में बोल रहा हूँ.
Pathan Sahab, isn't it a fact that the BBC's own employees...
Then go before the court and say, Rahul,
I'm only asking you.
Rahul is clean person, he does not take money from foreign entity to use false propaganda against the minority community. And to promote Modi, to promote BJP. And Rahul Shiv Shankar is a clean man. That will be decided by the court. But the allegations can be leveled.
Okay. So
refute the allegations, refute in proper channel. The proper channel is the Supreme Court of the country.
Pathan Sahab, 1 minute. I am not saying it. Jethmalani is also not saying it. He is not the first person to say it. And Ishkaran Bhandari has done his research. He's come on this show and I'm going to ask him. Ishkaran Bhai, here is a situation where BBC's own employees in the UK are upset that the BBC's overseas department that makes programming for the rest of the world is through some sort of offshore company taking money from Huawei Technologies, which is widely prescribed around the world, or at least not allowed to participate in infrastructure projects in some of the leading democracies of the world. I'm not saying it, BBC employees are saying it. Why do you think they would be saying it?
Rahul, let's deal with the fact of life. The one who pays for the DJ decides which song will play. It has been well established that China uses its companies as its arm, and not only Huawei. You see even TikTok. How TikTok operates in China, where it shows maths, physics, sports stars, versus how they operate in Western democracies, where they say all sort of perverted activities to youngsters to misguide them. So China using it, quite apart from surveillance, of how they use their companies, is well documented. And communists have always had this issue of useful idiots in other countries whom they use. Now let us deal with the facts. There is an information war going on. democracies are particularly vulnerable because all you need to succeed in a democracy is to change the person who wins the election and bring in a party, for example, a party you may have an MOU with or an understanding with, explicit or implicit, and you win the war. So democracies are vulnerable on that, and India, of course, is a democracy. Along with its many strengths, this vulnerability exists in it. Even USA faced this vulnerability and hoaxes of Russian collusion or Chinese collusion that is going on there also. So what to talk about India? Now, in this situation, when it has been documented that Huawei is funding BBC and 18 others are funding BBC, including the fact that they are funding people who, as Abhijit raises a very fair point, are already Pakistani origin people in dominant positions or influential positions in BBC, it becomes an extremely dangerous cocktail for India to deal with. The worry is this year going ahead, there will be many more pieces like this, and how the government deals with it, I don't think so. Its response was very appropriate because it has increased the problem. But the reality of danger on national security as well as propaganda as well as electoral interferences, where artificial intelligence is used to pump in these sort of narratives to vulnerable communities, which will be exploited by people like Mr. Pathan because he will get the votes, so he will support it. People who have gone to the court, they will of course have their day in the court. But the larger reality and the narrative of the danger to India by foreign sponsored,
under what provision of law can you prevent me from watching a documentary?
Cannot, one second, just want to finish my last point. The larger danger,
my question is simple.
During this year, one second, the last point. Rahul, I am predicting during this year we will have many more debates on your channel on foreign pieces of so-called media doing hit jobs and propaganda pieces. Their names could change from BBC to NYT to CNN or anybody else.
Okay, well, look, one second. One second.
Government is prepared to tackle it.
Will that include
one second.
One point.
Pathan साहब, देखिए, आपका क्या stance था when the final solution was banned in 2004, a so-called award-winning documentary film on the Gujarat riots by the UPA, by the Congress party? वो सब जानते हैं, आप चुप बैठे. At that time, for the same reasons, it was banned. So don't today fly the flag of free speech. When certain people make certain comments, should I say to the world what? No, one second, Pathan Saab. Should I tell the world what you have said in the past, what you have been quoted of saying? So don't show us your tolerance. You have zero tolerance. You have said you have said nasty things in the past, and you should be thankful.
You worry about yourself.
You should be thankful.
Indian mainstream media as well.
One second.
Let me include Times Now as well. Mr. Bhandari, kindly elaborate.
Yes, sir.
Kindly elaborate that as well with the debates which are going to take place in the country. Times Now. Will that include Times Now as well?
Because he's taken my name, can I ask a
my question is simple.
Would you do a book reading? Because you have
come up with something new. You have come up with these facts. You have come up with something secretive. You have opened the secret Pandora. Kindly expand that. Kindly expand that.
I am expanding it. Now let me answer. Because you are a free speech absolutist, I am very happy. Will you do a book reading of Salman Rushdie's book? Please do that. Support free speech.
Let that time come when the debate takes place. I will answer to your question at that time.
You know, I was going to ask the same question actually.
You are a lawyer.
I was going to ask the same question.
You are a lawyer. Under what provision of law?
Pathan bhai, aapke, one second, lower everyone's faders. Viewers, I can show you visuals of how Pathan's MIM's workers beat up, physically assaulted Tasleema Nasreen, viewers, in a press conference in front of everybody for writing a book. I'll show you those pictures, viewers. You watch them. These people talk about freedom of expression. They talk about the freedom of expression that suits their interest only, viewers. They are not bothered about freedom of expression. They are the first ones who will stab it in its back. And the communist, viewers, Vivek Srivastava is going to respond to a question. It's quite funny, viewers. Indira Gandhi had accused the communists of being in bed with foreign governments to destabilize our country. And viewers, today, they are in bed with the Congress party. They are fighting elections together in Tripura, in other places. They have absolutely very elastic morals and morality. Every political party has them. So the left is not being any different. let me also be honest. Look at those pictures, viewers. How they are throwing pots to break her head. If I ask Mr. Waris Pathan to condemn these chaps, he won't. And let me tell you, viewers, I want to bring in Mr. Vivek Srivastava. Mr. Srivastava, look, I am somebody who doesn't believe in bans at all. They should be there. But forget about that issue right now. The Supreme Court is going to deal with it. I'm asking you, if the BBC's own employees are saying that their company has an alliance with Huawei that represents the Chinese state and it makes them want to basically throw up, then obviously it is because they fear that there will be some influence over the BBC's journalism, right? It stands to reason. Yes, since you agree. So then why is the BJP today guilty of suspecting the motives of the BBC when it is funded by Huawei, by its own admission? Tell me, sir, Srivastava ji, and why do you buy into their propaganda?
Yes. Give me 30 to 40 seconds now, and please don't interrupt, and let me complete, then you counter me.
Yeah.
My first point, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee told Chief Minister Modi, Raj Dharm Nibhaiye, was he a Chinese man? Goa Adiveshan of BJP, when 70% of the delegates wanted the Chief Minister Modi to resign, and Advani ji helped him retain his position, were they Chinese agents? When United States of America banned the visa of Chief Minister Modi for 10 years, was it at the behest of the Chinese? So it has become a fashion to blame the Pakistanis and Chinese for everything. Whether a particular company is involved in a media house or not, that is not the debate. The debate is why was the documentary banned and what is the Chief Minister scared of?
Vivek Srivastava, do you support? He was
languishing in jail.
Vivek Srivastava, do you support? Do you support a company? No, I'm just asking you a very open and shut question. I don't want to get into what the Supreme Court will say, will not say. It's a matter that is sub judice, that is being dealt with. I'm only asking you a very simple question. The BBC's own employees are disturbed by the fact that their own company takes money from Huawei. Obviously, they are worried because they suspect that it might influence the journalistic endeavors of the BBC. Clearly, conflict of interest. Why shouldn't that apply to India? क्या Chinese हमारे को पेड़े देने के लिए घूम रहे हैं सर?
Apply to India. अरे सर, Chinese को छोड़ो, जब आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं सर. I agree with you. It must apply to the media houses in India and Noida also.
So then,
Mr. Adani's hostile takeover of NDTV is a prime example.
आपको अंबानी के पैसे अच्छे लगे थे? नहीं, आपको अंबानी के पैसे अच्छे लगे थे कि अडानी के अब नहीं अच्छे लग रहे हैं?
सर गलत लग रहे हैं ना, हमें गलत लग रहे हैं सर.
What idiotic nonsense Vivek Srivastava you are spewing?
दोनों के गलत है सर.
No, what nonsense?
Private funding गलत है सर.
What private funding? Who funds you? Hello, who funds you, Mr. Srivastava? आपको कौन fund करता है? While you come out and
हमें कोई नहीं फंड करता सर, हमें कोई नहीं फंड करता.
No, should I tell you what Indira Gandhi said? No, one second.
NDTV के टेकओवर की बात करिए ना सर.
Listen, my dear friend, my dear friend,
रवीश कुमार के resignation
you go to the Supreme Court, sir, if you have a problem with it. Go to the. I have not stopped you. Adani does business in your state, it's okay. No, one second. The left does business. No, just a minute. Vivek Srivastava को expose करने के लिए it takes 10 seconds, viewers.
Also raising a voice.
1 minute. Lower 1 minute. Let me speak. Now let me expose him. The left welcomes Mr. Adani to build ports in Kerala. जब भी मारते उनको. मगर when he buys NDTV, उनके पैसे से बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. Are these people, do they think we're stupid? When Ambani bought into NDTV, it was no problem. When Adani buys, it's a problem. When Adani invests in their state, it's all very nice. The Congress party, viewers, Mr. Gehlot, embracing Mr. Adani. His boss says Adani is a person that is looting India. Viewers, they need to wear their thinking caps right. Now they've turned it to the back. That's what has happened. Yes, Mr. Jindal, Adani's money is okay in Rajasthan.
It was Lieutenant General
Don't give me lieutenant. Ho gaya, sir. Thank you very much. I've run out of time. talking about Adani. No, please don't go into Lieutenant General and this General and that. Stay on the point, sir. If you have an answer to me, no, give me the answer. Adani's money is okay in Gujarat, no, it's okay in Rajasthan, it is okay in Kerala, but it is not okay when it goes to NDTV. I can't understand what you're talking about. Diversion. The fact is, viewers, that the BBC itself, it has employees that are on record to say we don't like you doing business with UAV. They're talking about BBC's management. Why do you think these BBC employees are so upset? If UAV was such a good company, as the BBC's own adverts say, then what are they so upset about? Clearly because they fear something. Aren't we therefore entitled to fear something when it comes to India? Why does the BBC call Kashmir Indian administered Kashmir? And why doesn't it call Scotland the same? English administered Scotland or English administered Ireland? These are fundamental questions, viewers. It tells you something. I leave it at this.
What's up guys, it's a great day, it's a beautiful day और आप सब
Alright, this is not your vlog Akash, this is Gadget Times. I welcome you all. I am Pavni Jain and this is our very special series where we are collaborating with different people on a variety of topics to bring the best for you guys right from the experts. So today we have with us is Akash Malhotra aka Wander with Sky. And he is somebody who creates insane and crazy travel content, goes to offbeat places and also does a lot of off-roading. Off-roading पे मैंने stress इसलिए दिया था क्योंकि ऐसी जगहों पर travel content capture करना becomes a little bit tricky, but this guy, he does it very right. This is why today's video is on how to use an action camera like a pro featuring Akash Malhotra, because it is easier to wander with Sky, but it is not easy to wonder how to use an action camera. Come on guys, right?
अच्छा था.
Alright, so to begin with, which is your go-to action camera, your most trustworthy device in the most challenging situations?
I think बहुत टाइम हो गया यूज़ करते हुए and everyone knows about this about me is that मैं बहुत avid GoPro user हूँ. So GoPro is my game.
Oh, alright, as we can see. So we have a lot of GoPros here. So इतने सारे GoPros use कर लिए हैं. तो सबसे important सवाल GoPro को इस्तेमाल कैसे करते हैं भाई? ये please हमारी audience को बताइए.
I think ये जो this question which was asked, right? इस्तेमाल कैसे करते हैं? इसके हर परम्यूटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन का जवाब है. फॉर एवरी के यूज केस, अगर आप कैमरे के अंदर बात करने वाले हैं, यूर अ व्लॉगर, देयर इज अ यूज केस. अगर आप बाइकर हैं, देयर इज अ यूज केस. अगर आप स्कूबा डाइवर हैं, देयर इज अ यूज केस. मतलब कैमरा इज सो वर्सेटाइल इन इटसेल्फ कि आप हर पर्सपेक्टिव में डिफरेंट सिचुएशन में कैमरे को डिफरेंट यूज कर सकते हैं. तो आपको अगर मुझसे थोड़ा डिटेल में सवाल पूछेंगे काश अगर ब्लॉग कैसे करते हैं, तो मैं आपको उस यूज केस में एक अलग सिचुएशन बताऊंगा. मगर मेरे हिसाब से द ईजिएस्ट वे टू समबडी टू स्टार्ट अ GoPro इज जस्ट गो. मतलब पर्सपेक्टिव्स पे खेलो. कैमरा इतना छोटा है, आप जमीन पे रख सकते हो, आप फेंक सकते हो, कैच खेल सकते हो. मतलब सोच को ब्रॉडन करना जरूरी है. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर यू स्टार्ट यूजिंग GoPro कैमरा. टेक्निकलिटीज आर डिफरेंट व्हिच आई बिलीव हम बात करेंगे, बट द प्लेस टू स्टार्ट इज टू गो क्रेजी.
बट यहाँ पर हम जेन्युइनली ये सीखने वाले हैं कि एक्शन कैमरा को यूज कैसे करते हैं. तो खेलना मत, जैसे कि आकाश ने अभी बोला. बेसिक एक्सेसरीज आपको क्या क्या चाहिए?
सुपर. सो ये है शॉर्टी एंड जैसे आपने पूछा कि सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है, GoPro की चीज पे माउंट करना बहुत क्रिटिकल है. बिकॉज अगर आप उसको हाथ में पकड़ते हैं मेजरली यू विल एंड अप पुटिंग योर फिंगर समवेयर, क्योंकि इतना वाइड ऑफ एंगल है, मेरे साथ बहुत होता है शुरू में, अगर इवन इफ यू कीप अ फिंगर ओवर हियर वो दिख जाएगा, तो इट्स बेटर टू माउंट इट इन समथिंग। यूजुअली अगर आप GoPro खरीदते हैं और GoPro का एडवेंचर किट लेते हैं तो उसमें शॉटी आता ही है, so if you should be very smart enough to buy that, so you just mount on a shorty and you shoot yourself while you're talking. GoPro is about perspectives, it's not like a phone, तो अगर आपका हाथ दिख रहा है तो cool लगता है, so you need to really get your mind working like that कि हाँ ये cool है, so this is important to have something to hold GoPro, also it gives you a place where you can keep it, अगर आपको चलते हुए शॉट लेना है। See, GoPro के साथ सबसे important बात ये है कि you have to understand कि कैमरा इज एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ योरसेल्फ, अगर आप ऐसे सोचेंगे तो आप डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव पे खेल पाएंगे, सो दैट्स वेयर यू स्टार्ट यूजिंग अ GoPro, एंड आई डोंट थिंक एज अ स्टार्टर यू नीड एनीथिंग मोर देन अ कैमरा एंड अ शॉटी।
Would you want to tell something to our viewers about the memory? Because इसमें normal, simple micro SD card.
The top stories on the show tonight, viewers.
President Draupadi Murmu delivered her maiden speech in Parliament ahead of the Union Budget, highlighting the achievements of the NDA government. President Murmu highlighted the achievements under the current NDA regime, saying that India was growing faster and was on the path of Atmanirbharta. The economic survey was tabled in Parliament a day ahead of the budget. The government has projected a GDP growth rate between 6% and 6.8% in the next financial year. Ayodhya's famous temple, the Tapaswi Chowni, has burnt an effigy of Swami Prasad Maurya to protest against his objectionable statements against Sanatan Dharma and Ramcharitmanas.
सो गाइज आज हम हैं यहाँ पे विद द गैलेक्सी A14 5G एंड ये सैमसंग का नया बजट स्मार्टफोन है। लेट्स सी इसको अनबॉक्स करते हैं। जैसे कि देख सकते हैं इस डब्बे में एक फ़ोन है और नथिंग नीचे ऊपर सिम इजेक्टर टूल एंड अंदर इसके आई थिंक चार्जिंग केबल होना चाहिए। यप
हेलो एवरीवन, स्वागत है सभी का टाइम्स ड्राइव में। मैं हूं अंकुर तनेजा। बगल में मेरी खड़ी है लेक्सस की RX, जो यहाँ ऑटो एक्सपो 2023 में यहाँ पर अनवील करी गई है। दो वर्जन है, 350H और 500H। 500H यहाँ पर खड़ा हुआ आप देख सकते हैं हमारे सामने है, एंड द कार लुक्स एब्सोल्युटली स्टनिंग, स्पेशली इन दिस कलर। एंड यहाँ पर देखेंगे ये F स्पोर्ट की बैजिंग लगी हुई है, तो 500H में जो है वो F स्पोर्ट वाला वर्जन आता है, 350H में F स्पोर्ट नहीं आता है। डिजाइन की बात करें तो गाड़ी रोटेट हो रही है, थोड़ा जैसे गाड़ी रोटेट हो रही है वैसे मैं डिजाइन की बात कर लेता हूँ। सो ओवरऑल देखिए इन टर्म्स ऑफ डायमेंशन प्रॉपर SUV वाला फील इसके साइज से आपको देखने को मिलेगा। एंड यहाँ पे क्लैडिंग थ्रू आउट दी गई है, पियानो ब्लैक में इसकी क्लैडिंग दी गई है, सो प्रीमियमनेस यहाँ पर झलक कर जरूर सामने आ रही है। एंड ओवरऑल टायर्स का जो अलॉय व्हील्स हैं वो भी सिंगल टोन में ब्लैक में यहाँ देखने को इधर मिल रहे हैं। फिर आऊँ पीछे की तरफ तो यहाँ पर पूरा वो कूपे वाला फील आता हुआ आपको देखने को मिलेगा। एंड पीछे की तरफ कनेक्टेड टेल लाइट यहाँ दी गई है, लेक्सस की ब्रांडिंग, RX 500H की ब्रांडिंग यहाँ डायरेक्ट फोर दिया गया है। एंड ये ऑफ रोडिंग कैपेबिलिटी साथ लेक्सस कह रही है ये गाड़ी को प्रोवाइड कर रही है। एंड नीचे भी ओवरऑल जो बॉडी कलर है उसी को मैच करते हुए इसका बम्पर भी यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहा है। सो डो जो है उसमें एक छोटा स्विच दिया गया है जिसको हल्का सा आप टच करेंगे तो वो ऑटोमेटिकली डोर्स सेंस कर लेंगे और वो खुल जाएंगे। फुल करने की जरूरत नहीं है। अंदर मैं यहाँ पे बात करूँ तो यहाँ पे जो मामला है शाही साथ ही साथ स्पोर्टी झलक कर पूरा आ रहा है। ये बड़ा सा स्क्रीन यहाँ पे दिया गया है सेंटर में। गाड़ी फिलहाल अभी ऑन नहीं है बट साइज देख के आप समझ जाएंगे मामला काफी शाही और काफी टेक फ्रेंडली यहाँ पर होने वाला है। पावर बटन यहाँ पे दिया गया है। इंस्ट्रूमेंट क्लस्टर है वो भी फुल डिजिटल देखने को मिलता है। लेफ्ट साइड में जो है सिस्टम को कंट्रोल करने के बटन, राइट साइड में क्रूज कंट्रोल, लेन असिस्ट पहला सब।
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As India continues to make a mark on the world stage, are there attempts being made to malign our nation? Are there bigger forces at play who are trying desperately to hurt India's growth story? This question is pertinent as a new twist has now come to the fore in the BBC documentary saga. BJP Member of Parliament Mahesh Jethmalani has claimed that the BBC docu-series India, the Modi Factor is a cash for propaganda deal between Beijing and BBC. Mahesh Jethmalani shared the link to a story published in the UK magazine The Spectator in August 2022 that claimed that the BBC was indeed taking money from Huawei, a Chinese telecom company. Huawei is believed to be closely linked to the Chinese state. Mahesh Jethmalani has said that the reason BBC was so anti-India because it was so desperate for money that it took funds from Huawei and was now actively pursuing the Chinese agenda. Listen in.
It's proven, it's part of the UK press, it's well known. First of all, they do this very discreetly and clandestinely. The money which they receive. Now, you know that Huawei is banned in Australia and it's banned in the US. Two of our Quad allies have banned it, right? Now, it is well known in the UK also, and the UK has also banned it from 5G trials. They've sanctioned Huawei. In spite of that, they're taking it to get around those sanctions. What are they doing? They're taking money from Huawei till today, right? And there's been a long history of BBC anti-India propaganda. Their ties with Huawei are very, very old. All that has to still come out, right? Also, the content material they get from, most of the content material which they rely upon, and including this documentary, the content material is from very tainted pro-China sources.
Times now dug a bit more and we found that BBC's own webpage makes sponsored content for Huawei, claiming it to be the real story of the company. Watch this.
Huawei is a $100 billion company. Most people think that Huawei has come from nowhere, when in actual fact it's taken 30 years to get to where they're going. Mr. Ren, the founder, lived through a very difficult time in China's history, which included famine, the Cultural Revolution. He'd had a pretty hard life.
History has determined the existence of Huawei. If China didn't open up, Huawei would not exist. If private companies would not be allowed, Huawei would not exist. It fit perfectly the bill, what was needed at that time for a Chinese entrepreneur to give the push towards what will become one of the biggest telecom companies in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are several articles that even reveal how BBC's own journalists have questioned the organization's ties with Huawei and even appealed to severe links with it, but their pleas have fallen on deaf ears. Now, despite all this proof, there are some back home who still continue to certify the BBC fakery. Listen in to the opposition leaders blatantly dismissing these claims.
I don't think anyone can accept this theory that BBC is so poor or disparate that it wants to make money out of humiliating the Prime Minister of largest democracy of the world. There is no substance in what Mahesh has said.
Now tell me one thing. If there is anything wrong in the which is false, as the government of India is saying in the documentary, let the people judge it. Let them watch it. Freedom of press and expression cannot be compromised, and that is a stand for which Shromani Akali Dal has always stood for.
भारत के आंतरिक मामलों में किसी और का हस्तक्षेप ठीक नहीं है, लेकिन भारत के अंदर जिस तरह से माहौल क्रिएट किया जा रहा है भारतीय जनता पार्टी शासित राज्यों में या भारतीय जनता पार्टी के द्वारा, इसको रोकने की दिशा में भी केंद्र सरकार को पहल करनी चाहिए और केंद्र सरकार को इस दिशा में कठोर कदम उठाना चाहिए.
So Mahesh Jetmani, being a responsible citizen and an eminent lawyer, should behave of one and substantiate its charges with proofs and documents to appropriate authorities so that appropriate action can be taken.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. Cash for propaganda. Is this the BBC truth? That's the question and that's the debate. BBC China twist. That's the hashtag and the debate on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Joining me tonight, Subhrashta, author and founder, The Churn, Karan Verma, author, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, Salim Dharni Dharan, spokesperson of the DMK, advocate Mohammad Adil Hassan, spokesperson of the AIMIM, and he's the youth president of the AIMIM. My first question, of course, goes to my friend Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist, professor, what have you. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, is the worst kept secret of the BBC out? And is that the reason why the BBC has been going, all guns blazing against India? Because Huawei money, as the Spectator has claimed, as Mr. Mahesh Jetmalani has claimed, has found its way into the BBC, and Huawei, apart from being banned both by Australia and the United States, is actually in the middle of a lot of dispute in India and was banned in India as well. In fact, not even allowed to participate in the 5G, auctions that we had. So do you think this is actually a hit-back job on India?
Good evening, Navika. Look, I've said this before. Let me repeat it for the benefit of the viewers who probably did not hear it or want to hear it again. The only thing lower than the credibility of the BBC is the intelligence of its journalists. The BBC, Navika, is a methane-spewing landfill of lies, fraud and selectivity. Let me just give you a few examples out of literally hundreds. The BBC pulled down its report on Indian fake news because the report itself relied on fake news. It retracted its report claiming a protest march against bombing in Syria attacked an MP's house. It apologized to Primark for a fictitious child labor Bangalore story. It published the fake claim that India was funding MQM. It apologized for its fake report claiming Live Aid charity money was being used in Ethiopia to buy weapons. It retracted its fake news that a dog was stoned to death in Israel. It retracted its fake story of a Nigerian hotel serving human meat. From spurious Rwanda genocide documentary to a blatantly one-sided coverage of the recent Delhi riots, to blaming Hindu hierarchy for Muslims raping a Dalit, to claiming Kaziranga poachers were victims, to EVM hacking conspiracies, to spreading fake news about a Sikh policeman getting death threats for saving a Muslim, to calling terrorist Burhan Wani a rebel leader. The BBC has done it all for the sake of propaganda. And the supreme irony is, they slander Modi, who has been fact-checked by the Supreme Court. But don't fact-check those who they call on their documentary to slander Modi. Take Arundhati Roy. They give her space to rant, but don't reveal her psychopathic claim that a riot victim Kausar Banu's womb was ripped open and her fetus brandished at a sword point by Modi's Hindutva Brigade was authoritatively debunked by none other than the Chief Information Commissioner of India, who went to the trouble of not only locating the family but also the doctor. Now finally, Navika, let me come to the other issue of China and Huawei. Yes, It is totally hypocritical of the BBC to claiming to stand up for human rights when they are accepting Chinese money, albeit through ads. But when I hear BJP and government leaders saying BBC should be banned in India because it is accepting money from quote an enemy state, I want to ask, why is it that the India-China trade has been the highest ever this year despite Galwan? It has crossed $100 billion for 2 years running, and this year it is $135 billion. Worse, our exports to China have declined by 38% compared to last year, but Chinese imports have risen. Our deficit is now a staggering $101 billion. So we want to ban BBC for accepting Chinese money, even as we are drowning in it. Just because the BBC is hypocritical doesn't give you the right to be hypocritical and silly as well.
Well, Anand Ranganathan, I know your lament about the export issues with China, but it is a fact that Huawei was a company, and I know it because I used to cover telecom, and you can pick up the Times of India of August 22nd, 2005, 17 years before, the day I joined Times Now, and today is the 17th anniversary of Times Now. Tehseen Poonawalla. It was.
Congratulations.
It was.
Congratulations.
It was the Congress party which actually overruled even the Intelligence Bureau in 2005 to allow Huawei and Chinese companies to come in. So obviously Tehseen Poonawalla, nobody is going to expect the Congress party to even believe the story Mahesh Jethmalani has put out in public domain, though it was in Spectator all along. The question I want to ask you is, every day new holes are blown into the BBC documentary, the fact checks, and every day the opposition continues its own raga about how the truth has finally come out when you don't even believe the Supreme Court on this.
Good evening. First of all, many congratulations to you and the Times Now group for doing for a stupendous anniversary and success. And may you have a lot more success and always uphold free speech. This BBC documentary came out before the government decided to ban it, 6 days prior to what the government decided to ban it. And I'm going to repeat something that I said yesterday on the show, and Anand was on the show with me. No matter how uncomfortable something is, please don't ban it, because the reason of banning it, what happens is, when this documentary came out 6 days ago, and it was on a lot of WhatsApp groups, this is prior to the government banning it.
Including Huawei.
Can we just talk about the documentary?
No, because we are talking about Huawei money in BBC. So you didn't want to ban Huawei either. The country's security be damned.
All right. Can I just finish one and then I'll answer the second? But because my flow breaks, it's just very difficult to speak. So let me just finish the first part. Look, the thing is, when this documentary came 6 days ago on the WhatsApp prior to it being banned, I personally, and I still have those chats, thought, what is new in this documentary? The Honorable Supreme Court has exonerated the Honorable Prime Minister. There's nothing new in this documentary. So why waste time? That was my reaction in Britain. The fact is, the government overreacted. Somebody is more loyal than the king and decided that they had to come down with a heavy hand with emergency powers to ban a documentary at a time when we are celebrating our becoming a constitutional republic and our democracy and our constitution. This is on 26 Jan. When you try to ban something, the reaction will always be adverse, and there was no need for the government to do it. The government had a clean chit from the Supreme Court. The same Supreme Court that gave the government a clean chit, which the law minister is quoting, who the law minister is going after the same Supreme Court and saying we have to change the system. So this government actually does not know how to deal with this issue. This documentary that got no traction. Now coming to the second issue that Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani and you rightly raised about a telecom company. Look, man, whether it is the Congress government, whether it is me, whether it is anybody, none of us are in power. The fact is, the most honorable Prime Minister claims, or his followers claim, he's the most powerful man in the universe. He needs to act on whatever is against India's interest. Our trade deficit with China is 101 billion, the highest. And do you know, ma'am, there's a report with the government of India that says the things that we import from China can be imported from 3 other countries at much lesser rate, and the government has not acted on it, and Anand is aware of this report. This is a government that does not want to act against China.
Well, while Anand has been raising this issue, Tehseen Poonawalla, I really did think that you would duck from the question of the security agencies which had raised the issue of red flagging Huawei, which is something that you didn't decide in your time. Instead, you opened the doors for Chinese companies to come into the power sector, into the telecom sector, and Anand Ranganathan today, Tehseen Poonawalla only has your argument to lament about the export imbalance.
101 billion is not Anand's argument.
No, Tehseen, please.
Sorry,
Tehseen, please.
so sorry. But it's not Anand's argument. These are documented facts of the government of India.
Tehseen, please allow me. Navika, thank you so much. Now, just a couple of points. Number one, I would have really liked had Tehseen given credit to what I have been raising over the past year and a half about the fact that an Indian organization itself has raised that 87% of the goods we import from China can be imported from third countries. But nonetheless, that's another fact. The other fact that Tehseen doesn't say is that when UPA came to power, our import deficit or trade deficit with China was, I think, 1 billion. It increased to 36 billion when UPA left power in 2014. And finally, Navika, correct me if I'm wrong, but Huawei, like in the UK, India has banned Huawei from bidding for 5G, but it hasn't still banned Huawei. The company isn't banned in India. So before we ban BBC for taking money from Huawei, at least we should show, not be hypocritical, at least ban Huawei.
Well, Anand Ranganathan, if you've covered telecom sector for 20 years or more as I have, you will know that Huawei had come into India in 2005 and even before that had its set up in Bengaluru, and it was the Congress's blessings that allowed them to flourish. Now you can't throw out people who are already inside retrospectively. You can't do that because that's the law of the land. Retrospectively you can't throw out somebody. But yes, the new things are not happening. But Huawei has supplied a lot of telephone exchanges because in the bidding process China always gave it cheaper, and the fear of the security agencies was that they would bug Indian telecom networks. But that apart, let me get back Subrashra into the debate. 1 minute, Tehseen Poonawalla. Subrashra ji, everybody is trying to find the bogey of why the government hasn't done this or the government hasn't done that. Let us just restrict, because there are too many interconnected and historical things in the telecoms networks that we run in our country. So that's a debate for another day. But let's just look at the pure China link that comes in to BBC. I'm only asking the question, banning, again a side story, whether it was right or wrong, nothing should be banned. Let's take that as a given. But the fact of the matter is, does it give you the real reason why BBC may be putting out this, if the Spectator report is correct and the conclusions that have been drawn by Mahesh Jethmalani are correct? Because the website says that Storyworks, the division of the BBC that does all of this, gives all sorts of certificates to Huawei, and that's the agenda. The money coming in, and how distraught BBC is on finances is anybody's guess.
Right. So Navika ji, congratulations first of all on your on Times Now's anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think let's get two things very straight. I think nobody supports the ban on this documentary, because all of us, whether this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle, we all know that there's nothing new in the documentary. So let's just shelve that argument. Now I totally agree with Anand that with this whole trade with China and the kind of relationship that we maintain with China will be called upon when we discuss this controversy in its entirety. And I'll tell you why. Because we all know, Navika ji, you have covered telecom for so many years and you've been in the thick of, that whole storm and controversy when it was all around. You know it more than anyone else that the government really needs to come out with a detailed clarification, not just for the people, but also for, for research professionals to be able to access this document later on. What has been our stand on Huawei? What should be our stand going forward, and why we cannot take certain stringent measures, if at all the government feels it cannot retrospectively, as you say. These are official, this is an official communique which ideally should come from the government. Now, that BBC is cash-strapped, that BBC has been anti-India, that BBC's narrative has never favored us, these are all ideological, questions and ideological narratives that we will continue to fight. That's a separate story. It's a completely different issue altogether. That China is investing in BBC in order to harm India, and that BBC is obviously complicit in this entire game plan, calls for a global conversation on the kind of advertisement that organizations like BBC have on their particular platforms, the kind of money that flows in. These are all global conversations. But at a national level, we really need to tackle this. If at all we believe that our internal security, if at all we believe that our international image is being tarnished by international agencies or international corporations or organizations, we really need to take this head on. Where is the government's communique on this? I'm sure that there are a lot of these narrative wars which are going on, but where is the official communication?
Well, fair point that the government needs to take action, but I want to get in Salim Dharani Dharan, and I want to ask you, sir, that China playing games, would you trust China more than you would trust your own security agencies, or the fact that countries like Australia, US, even the UK have banned Huawei, and BBC, for BBC it's a benefactor, and they get their money from them, and then they do this agenda which is an anti-India agenda, which is not the first time they've done it in the past. Yet you will not believe the Supreme Court of India, but believe the BBC. Is that the way the opposition wants to run this entire controversy?
Madam, I am deeply worried by the Chinese dominance in this country. The rhetoric of the Prime Minister differs from the reality. Look at the trade balance. He came to power saying, make in India, we'll make everything in India. But the trade balance currently is one of the highest historically. And also, more importantly, the balance of payment or balance of trade with China alone has increased by about 78% from last year. And then Indian imports, right, have increased, and Indian exports have decreased by about 40%. So this is a grave concern. Subramanian Swamy, BJP's own former MP, has said that Chinese are coming and occupying our territory. So our question is the Prime Minister being weak that he is not able to tackle the Chinese? And the report, Hindenburg report, there was a mention of a mysterious Chinese man, Chang Chung Lini, and Vinod Adani having some links. No TV took up that debate, no English channel took up that debate. Why? Why is there no answers on this from SEBI or from any other pertinent ministries? And more importantly, the foreign minister of this country has not answered anything on this. He has not blamed the BBC. He should have called, if he thinks there's something wrong, he should have summoned the British High Commissioner to India. Nothing of that sort has come from the MEA. MEA is in charge for this. Why is the MEA sleeping? But having said all that, why do you ban something? Is this government lacking confidence? Supreme Court has acquitted the Prime Minister, right? They were acquitted. So if there is a propaganda that's being played by the BJP, people will be able to discern between what is propaganda, what is truth. Does this government not think that people can't decide for their own? So I think it's lack of confidence on this government. In fact, because of the banning domino effect, more people have started watching this. And also the timing is questionable.
There is no question, sir, that banning is not something that's going to solve the problem. But I don't see anybody here, going beyond the trade issues with China and Tehseen. I come back to you. The fact that you want to pussyfoot on this entire issue is it because that China and Congress have a certain MOU? Is that why you will never come out and say that it could be part of a larger Chinese plot?
Okay, so your answer to your question to me is, the Congress and the Chinese political party signed an MOU in 2008. Therefore, in 2022, Shri Narendra Modi ji allows Chinese to make documentaries against him, cannot act against him, allows them to come into Indian territories. Is that the logic? Is that any sort of logic? If there is anything illegal in the MOU, please, Mr. Narendra Modi should investigate it.
But you haven't shared it. Have you shared the MOU?
I am saying, listen, ma'am, I am saying, as per most people, the Congress is bad, it's out of power, it's not relevant. Mr. Modi is the most powerful man in the world, so is Mr. Amit Shah ji. Why don't they investigate it and give it to you? And you break the story and castigate the Congress. Please do it. Can I ask you one question? Why has the Prime Minister still not had the
so no onus on the Congress party to come out, to come clean on the MOU. The onus is on the government, and if the government does anything, they will say it is vendetta politics. They will not utter a word against China. Anand Ranganathan, is the plot now clear?
The plot was clear from the day.
2008 to make a documentary in 2022. To catch Mr. Modi for 2004. What logic? 2002.
Tessim, please.
Tessim, just one line and I'll stop. Just one line. As per BJP, Congress signed a document with China in 2008 for a documentary to be made in 2022 about 2002. I mean, कोई logic हो, वाह मोदी जी वाह, ये भी इसके सामने fail हो जाता है.
Anand Ranganathan, you know, Tessin is being rather cute on this, but the fact of the matter is, he still hasn't said a word against China.
Tessin is cute on a lot of matters, but the problem with Tessin is that hypocrisy runs in his veins very recently. I mean, he is the one who, being a real insider, a part of the kitchen cabinet, you know, maybe the sink, he still hasn't disclosed the entirety of the MOU that his party signed with the Chinese. But can I please take real delight at my fellow friend here, panelist, the DMK spokesperson. It is so delightful to listen to him wax eloquent about why no film or documentary should be banned, when his government banned the Da Vinci Code, banned the thriller Damn 999. What kind of hypocrites are these people? Is this spokesperson ready to say that the banning of Da Vinci Code was wrong, or Damn 999 was wrong? Come on, say it. Mr. Salem, open challenge to you. Mr. Salem, can you hear me?
Yes, he's responding to you.
Question, then you throw a counter. Yes.
No, you are against ban, right? So
I'm speaking. I think I'm not sure why you're not able to hear.
You are against the ban, right? You are against the ban. So I'm asking you, why did you ban Da Vinci Code and Damn 999?
See, I think every situation has to be taken as per the context. The context was to maintain communal harmony then and so on and so forth. But I have a very important question for you. You go back. Let's listen. No, not listen to me. Listen. You have to listen to me now. You will listen to me now. You will listen to me. You listen to me now. See, Shanghai, I have answered you. Now you will answer me this. See. You will answer me this now. No. Listen. See, wait. I'm just, let me speak. Let me speak. You're not letting me speak.
No, listen.
That's what I'm speaking. Now you tell me.
Mr. Salim, you have not answered him. You have said every situation is different. That's not an answer. That's not an answer, sir.
These guys banned Damn 999.
See, that
thriller, Damn 999.
See, wait. I am answering you.
Now, you see, you're not answering. You're interrupting. There's a difference. I know you don't know Tamil, but I hope
you're not letting me complete. You're not letting me complete.
I asked you a point blank question. Why did you ban Da Vinci Code? Why?
Don't make personal remarks.
No, you banned, you have no answer. You said there are different reasons for different things and situations are different, and that really exposes your hypocrisy. Your hypocrisy completely. But let me
go back and study.
Oh, see, this, you are not letting me complete.
Okay.
You are not letting me complete.
What's the point?
Only if I speak I can complete. See, this government, BJP is the government that can...
raise your voice.
This government, BJP, does not have any moral standing to talk about freedom of speech. My question is only one thing. Shanghai Tunnel Engineering was given a project for 1,200 crores along the border by this BJP government in 2020. Why? Right? Recently in 2020, the railways have given 39,000 order 39,000 railway wheels from China, Chinese company. Why?
Why are you diverting the issue, Mr. Salem? Why are you diverting the issue? The issue is on the ban. The issue about Chinese investments, the issue about Chinese trade has been dealt with. Why don't you respond? Why are you being hypocritical about bans? You say the government of the day has banned the BBC, which is a wrong thing, but you do this banning business every single morning. You know, it's pot calling the kettle black, but let me get in Karan Verma. 1 minute, let me get in Karan Verma. Karan Verma, the question here is, and let me read out this report in the Times of India, front page in 2005, 16th of August, as I said. Raising concerns about China, the R&AW, the Intelligence Bureau and the MEA have raised issues about the safety of asking or allowing Chinese companies like Huawei to get into turnkey telecom networks. The fear was expressed, yet the Congress government allowed them to go on and come into the country because, I don't know, Karan Verma. So all those today who are raising this question on excess trade that is taking place, investments those are taking place, you know, why don't they answer about why the doors were opened in the first place when China had been banned from coming into the infrastructure sector, both power and telecoms. China came into it only during the UPA.
I think it was a colossal strategic blunder, a deliberate blunder perhaps by the Congress party back then when we had a trade deficit of less than, I think, $1.2 billion with China back in 2005, and it ballooned to $36 billion post the agreement between the Congress party and the CCP. But Navika ji, right now when we are debating this, the US is considering a blanket ban on any sale of technology to Huawei. This is the kind of potential danger the US sees in Huawei. And there is a reason, there is a pattern. In the last 3 years, Navika ji, China has invested $318 billion across the EU. It has taken over as a majority shareholder in 360 companies across Europe, as per a report by Bloomberg. What that shows is that China has strategic interests in places across the globe. And in 2016, Xi Jinping in a media summit, he made no bones about it. He said we need to increase our media influence across the globe. And for that, there is a $10 billion annual budget earmarked. So these are facts in the public domain.
Exactly, so and some China of those millions are getting into BBC, and then BBC does a hit job on Indian government and Prime Minister Modi. So, Advocate Mohammad Adil Hassan, आपको ये चाइना का प्लॉट नहीं नजर आता? आपको सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर भी कोई ट्रस्ट नहीं है?
मैम, चाइना के साथ झूला झूल रहे थे प्रधानमंत्री जी, अभी बाली में चाइना के साथ गले मिल रहे थे प्रधानमंत्री जी। 2013 में मेरे पास प्रधानमंत्री जी का डॉक्यूमेंट्स मौजूद है, वीडियो मौजूद है, जिसमें बीबीसी को सम्मान दे रहे थे, बोल रहे थे आकाशवाणी और दूरदर्शन से ज्यादा ऑथेंटिक बीबीसी है। अगर महेश जेठमलानी साहब के सबूत है, लेट हिम, आस्क हिम टू गो टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट। ऐसा क्यों बेचैन होते? एक फिल्म से इतना, ये मोदी सरकार एक फिल्म से क्यों डरी हुई है? एक बीबीसी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री से अगर मोदी सरकार डर गई तो 56 इंच का सीना कहां है? वो 56 इंच का सीना जो गलवान वैली और डोकलाम में जो घुस रहे हैं चाइनीज लोग, कहां है वो? ना कोई घुसे हैं, ना कोई घुसेंगे। क्यों सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी सुबह शाम ट्वीट कर रहे हैं? क्यों द हिंदू, क्यों सुशांत सिंह ये रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं? आखिर इतनी जो आबादी बढ़ रही है बॉर्डर पर, क्या कर रहे हैं मोदी जी? एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री से मेरा देश का प्रधानमंत्री डर जाए, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि प्रधाधानमंत्री क्यों डर रहे हैं। चाइना से हर दिन
है नहीं। आनंद रंगनाथन कहना चाह रहे हैं, जी, आई एम कमिंग टू यू।
वो तो बीजेपी ही के हैं आनंद भाई, आनंद जी तो बीजेपी ही के हैं। यस सर, बताइए।
मैं तो शरिया का भी हूँ, आप भी शरिया, मैं भी शरिया का हूँ।
बीजेपी लिख दिया कीजिए मैम,
लिख दीजिए, मैं तो शरिया का हूं, मैं शरिया का, आपकी तरह
शरिया के नहीं है, आप
मैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को नहीं मानता इंडिया, आपकी तरह मैं इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को नहीं मानता।
हम मेरे से ज्यादा संविधान को कोई नहीं, मेरे से ज्यादा संविधान को कोई मानने वाला नहीं है।
इंडिया के संविधान की बात कर रहा हूं।
चलिए आनंद रंगनाथन जी जवाब दे रहे हैं। आनंद रंगनाथन जी जवाब दे रहे हैं।
संविधान की बात कर रहे हैं।
कैन यू प्लीज म्यूट हिम?
भारत के संविधान की मैं बात कर रहा हूं। मेरे बाप दादा की कुर्बानी है।
वेल हसन साहब, आनंद रंगनाथन की बात भी सुन लीजिए। आनंद आई एम लोअरिंग योर फेड।
भाई
या गो ऑन।
रजाकारों को इतना गुस्सा नहीं आना चाहिए। पिछली बार जब आया था पता ना क्या हुआ था ऑपरेशन पोलो। लेकिन नाविका ये इतना कह रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट डर गई, गवर्नमेंट डर गई। मैं इनसे पूछना चाहता हूं, जो इनका नेता जो कि मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है, एक बार भी पार्लियामेंट में खड़े होकर उसने कहा है कि चाइना हैज इंटर्न्ड 1.5 मिलियन उइगर मुस्लिम्स इन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कैंप्स एंड इज फीडिंग 1.5 मिलियन मुस्लिम पोर्क? ये है इनकी दोस्ती चाइना से। पार्लियामेंट हाउस में खड़े होकर बोला है आपने? ये मुस्लिम्स की कदरदारी करते हैं। झूठे हैं आप लोग, मक्कारी करते हैं। आप मुस्लिम्स के साथ ना कभी थे और ना कभी हैं।
सुनिए, आपका सर्टिफिकेट नहीं चाहिए मिस्टर आनंद।
पढ़ के आइए।
सरकार की दलाली
मुस्लिम्स के बारे में।
सरकार की दलाली
माफ कीजिएगा, एक मिनट। सुब्राष्ट्र जी, so is it all about hypocrisy and convenience of an agenda that really runs the opposition agenda in this country?
Of course it does. I mean, look at the way this gentleman, is trying to counter Anand. They don't have any logical response to any question that you ask them. They feed on the counter arguments that we give on behalf of the opposition. And on top of that, if you question them, they start calling people names. This is what the opposition has stooped to. When there is a specific question being asked about Rahul Gandhi's MOU with Congress, we heard a very general response. When there is a specific question being asked on why Da Vinci Code was banned, Mr. Sadam has a response that the nation saw. This AIMIM gentleman, despite
absolutely
his only contribution to the program has been personal attacks.
Absolutely.
So what do we don't expect the opposition to do its job.
Well, the point here is another twist in the BBC saga. Now, the question is, why will the opposition still not believe that this documentary is a propaganda with an agenda? Why will they still not believe the Supreme Court? Just because targeting Prime Minister Modi is an agenda that has stayed with them for years and years and years and decades. And that clearly seems to be the agenda even for 2024. But will the public see through this? We'll have to wait and watch. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. On the other side, ladies and gentlemen, despite a negative report by New York's short seller Hindenburg, India's largest follow-on public offer worth rupees 20,000 crore by the Adani Enterprises was oversubscribed on the last day today with heavy support from non-institutional investors. The shares saw a subscription of 112% as investors sought at least 4.62 crore shares against the offer of 4.55 crore shares. The FPO success is being seen as a mark of investor confidence for the Adani Group, as there were concerns earlier that the FPO may not receive a strong response from the investors amid the Hindenburg research report. The Hindenburg report had claimed that the Adani Group was engaged in brazen stock manipulation and accounting fraud schemes over the course of decades and was pulling the largest con job in corporate history in India. The company had denied the short seller's allegations and claimed that these were an attack on India. Chairman of Adani Group, Gautam Adani, in conversation with Times Now today, claimed vindication and thanked the investors for their support. Listen in.
Sir, today we have seen that Hindenburg's that controversy is going on. You have already given a very long clarification on this thing. Anything you want to convey because you feel that it's an attack on India?
Besides, basically, of course, it is attack on India is one part, but ultimately, end of the day, we have completed our FPO, irrespective of what basically they have said, and I am really thankful to all our investors.
Though the FPO is oversubscribed, the fact of the matter is that controversy and debate carries on in the opposition. So let's just go straight across to the debate, and joining Dr. Anand Ranganathan and Tehseen Poonawala is Naval Kishore, spokesperson of the RJD, and Suhail Seth, columnist, author, and he's master marketing guru. Tehseen Poonawala, today what will you say? Would you want to congratulate the Adani Group? The entire FPO has been oversubscribed, despite the report and the opposition's advertising of that report.
Before I say, I want to make a disclosure. I have in the past bought Adani shares and sold it. I think for sake of transparency, it must be in full public domain. And I actually do want to congratulate Mr. Adani. There is nothing wrong. He's an Indian businessman. And I said it on a couple of Twitter spaces and tweeted that, look, there are certain things about his group that are stable. He's a cash-rich company, and they will come, and that is good for the Indian economy. I've taken this position very publicly. Number two, as regards to Mr. Adani, I mean, he has been a success story, which you must acknowledge. There are certain questions that are raised in this report, which would, for example, never be raised about, say, Mr. Tata, because there are certain questions. And I think those questions need to be addressed not under the garb of nationalism, but under the garb of logic. So
but there is a 400 odd pages response that has been given, so maybe you can read it. But would you also advise Congress leader Rahul Gandhi that if Mr. Adani is so untouchable, then why is he investing in Rajasthan? Why is he investing in Kerala?
Look,
why is he even buying ports in Haifa in Israel today? Why? So Suhail said, I want to ask.
Can I just make one point which is very important, and then Suhail, just one point, just 10 seconds. I'll take just 10 seconds. I think the Adani Group, if the share prices come down further, you could look at what you could look at as a good investment. The point that you need to look at is the questions that have been raised with regards to his brother. Those need to be answered transparently. That's it. And I think Mr. Adani should answer those questions and give out a detailed report. His response is not
the opposition willing to hear any answers? Because Tehseen may have a view, but Rahul Gandhi has a completely different view, even though his own Congress government in Rajasthan is doing business with Mr. Adani. So isn't this hypocrisy, Suhail?
So here's the thing, I must also make full disclosure. I don't have any money that Tehseen has, so I have no shares of anyone. One day when Tehseen floats his own party, I might invest in that. Because he has so many Poonawalas floating around, they can't be accused of anything. But on a more serious note, I think it's a great day today for Indian industry. It's a great vindication of brand India. It's a great vindication of the investment climate that Narendra Modi has created in this country. Look, let's be realistic. The opposition, don't bother about them. They have a problem for every solution. That's how they've been born. They were born out of an umbilical cord which told them to be negative in everything that they did. Look at the company that you're dealing with. And to make comparisons with, groups, this group, that group is also a bit odious. Today, the Adani Group has world-class assets. They are number one in the world in many businesses, including solar. They're the biggest power PNG, CNG company in India. They have ports, they have airports. They have been hauled over the coals in courts of law. Am I going to trust 5 people in New York who are surreptitiously working to an agenda which they've also said they're short sellers? If anyone who understands the stock market will tell you that people go short on a stock with vindication and with a certain amount of revenge, which is neither logical nor ethical. The Adani Group needn't have responded. They shouldn't have given that 413-page rejoinder. They did. If they had anything to hide, the courts would have caught them. Are you belittling India's institutions? Are you belittling India's courts of law? Do you think we don't have a market regulator as tough? I mean, America, for God's sake, had more economic issues than India will ever have. So, cut India some slack. Cut Indian industry some slack. Navik, I've said this on your program before and I will repeat. It is very easy for Rahul Gandhi, while he's playing with snowmen and, throwing balls of snow, to cast aspersions on people who actually do a hard day's work. It's very easy to say, this person, that person, this person. Look at the hypocrisy. 2 Trinamool members of parliament have gone nuts. Mamata Banerjee made Gautam Adani the chief guest at the Global Business Summit last year. Why? I mean, you can't, have this level of hypocrisy and continue to decry business in India. Who will trust business in India?
Exactly. That's the basic question. That is the basic question. And Naval Kishore ji, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूं कि अगर इंडियन इंडस्ट्री बढ़ेगी तो ऑपोजिशन क्या उनको नीचे खींचने के बिजनेस में है या बाहर के प्लॉट्स को सक्सेसफुल करने में उस बिजनेस में है, या आप भारत की ग्रोथ भी देखना चाहते हैं? क्योंकि एजेंडा हो सकता था एफपीओ से पहले, टाइमिंग वाइमिंग, बहुत से लोग सवाल पूछ रहे हैं इस पे। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूं कि इंडियन बिजनेसमैन पे जहां सुहेल सेठ का कहना है कोर्ट सब कुछ देख रही है, उसके बावजूद ऑपोजिशन एक एजेंडा उसको बना ले, क्या ये सही है? और अब जब इन्वेस्टमेंट आ गई है और एफपीओ ओवर सब्सक्राइब हो गया है बाय फॉरेन कंपनीज, आप क्या कहेंगे?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो आपको इस बात का जवाब देना चाहिए कि अगर वो इतना ही अनरिलायबल रिपोर्ट था तो आपने 413 पेज का जवाब क्यों दिया? नंबर 1। नंबर 2, 413 पेज देने के बाद
लोग हैं सर, मेरे भाई नवल किशोर जी, मेरे भाई, आपने बहुत सही प्रश्न किया। आज पहली बार आपने एकदम तीर मारा है और सही बात है आपकी। पता है इस देश में हमको क्यों जवाब देना पड़ता है? अगर आप जवाब नहीं देंगे ना, आप तो चुप रहेंगे, पर आपके जैसे सारे ऑपोजिशन के लोग बोलेंगे देखिए जी इन्हें चुप्पी साधी हुई है, जरूर कुछ छुपाना था। यही प्रॉब्लम है नवल किशोर भाई, इस देश में कुछ बोलो तब गाली पड़ेगी, कुछ ना बोलो तब गाली पड़ेगी। अब आप जैसे महान व्यक्ति अगर देश को चलाएंगे तब देश ठीक चलेगा। आपने सही प्रश्न किया है।
आप जी पहले कंप्लीट करने देते तो बेहतर होता सर।
अरे मैं क्यों कंप्लीट करने देता? मेरी बात कोई कंप्लीट नहीं करने देता। मैं भी वही करूंगा जो आप लोग।
मैं तो आपको नहीं रोकता हूँ।
चलिए नवल किशोर जी, आपका मुद्दा क्या है?
थोड़ा प्यार, दो चीज है। अगर आपने कोशिश किया जवाब देने का 413 पेज में, फिर भी 62 सवाल का जवाब आपने क्यों दिया? यहां पे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं फ्रॉड और मैनिपुलेशन हुआ होगा। मैं नहीं कहता हुआ है या नहीं, ये जांच का विषय है। जो उपयुक्त जांच एजेंसी है वो कर सकती है, और पहले भी किया है।
तो आपने रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है क्या? आपने हिंडनबर्ग की रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है क्या नवल किशोर जी? आपसे मेरा एक ही सवाल है, आपने हिंडनबर्ग की रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है क्या?
देखिए, आप कितना परेशान हो गए मेरे जवाब से।
नहीं,
आप अब कहेंगे कि आपने रिपोर्ट देखी है क्या?
अच्छा,
पढ़ी है?
चलिए आपने 400, चलिए आपका हिंडनबर्ग में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, आपने 413 पेज का अडानीज का रिस्पांस पढ़ा है क्या?
नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि आपको इतना अगर शक है अपने रेस्पोंडेंट पे, तो आपको एक्सपर्ट को बुलाना चाहिए जिन्होंने रिपोर्ट लिखा होगा और पीछे में भारत का झंडा लगा।
आनंद रंगनाथन क्यूईडी ना रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है हिंडनबर्ग की, ना जवाब पढ़ा है अडानी के एंटरप्राइजेस का, लेकिन 62 सवालों का जवाब नहीं आया है, ये हिंडनबर्ग के स्टेटमेंट से इनको पता चल गया है। I rest my case. Anand Ranganathan respond.
I want to use Anand's.
Thank you.
Now, I will not. They have been abusing and trolling that poor CFO of Adani. I can't remember his name. Why? Because he had the Indian flag at the back. I mean, have we gone nuts in this country? Now I have sunflowers in the back. Someone says, why are you having a sunflower in your back? What should I keep
मोदी को भूल गए क्या?
Okay, Anand Ranganathan is responding. Anand Ranganathan is responding. Naval Kishore जी, मैं आऊंगी आपके पास। आनंद रंगनाथन जवाब दे रहे हैं, 1 मिनट। आनंद रंगनाथन।
Navika, good guys never win because I've been waiting very patiently और कोई मुझे सब मेरा।
I will ensure you win. Come on.
Thank you.
Make your point.
Thank you. No, as a layman who's never indulged in any stocks except laughing stock, I just want to make couple of points, very important. Navika, the first point is that I don't care about governments or private enterprises. Some win, some lose. That is not a matter for a public consideration because it is competition out there, Darwinian evolution. Some companies go bust, some companies do really well. What I really bothered about is India. And here I want to do two things, suggest two things. First of all, I disagree with my good friend Sohail, not only because he says, he will vote for Tehseen's party, but not my party. But the fact that he says is that Adani should not have replied. Well, the fact is that, he said 5 people sitting in New York. The fact is, even despite Adani's 413-page rebuttal to just 5 blokes sitting in New York, Adani has lost a value of 3 lakh crores. So he had to reply, otherwise he would have gone completely kaboom. So it is a fact that people took the Hindenburg report seriously. Now, number 2, and this is very important. I don't care about the government's liaison with or the hypocrisy of Congress governments also having a lot of stake in Adani companies from Chhattisgarh to Rajasthan to Bengal, right? And the hypocrisy of it. What I want to know about is, the fact is that when 3 lakh crore of our investors' money has been wiped out, it is India's loss. It is India's loss, Navika. So we must have an independent regulator like the CAG coming out immediately. As soon as some allegation is, is made upon any big Indian company, to say that, look, we have our PSUs also invested in this, so our taxpayers' money is involved in Adani, and Adani is completely safe. It is not corrupt. This is CAG saying this. Had we done this on day 0, I bet you Adani would not have lost 3 lakh crores and it would have been mired in suit, countersuit, but at least the Indian taxpayers wouldn't have been poorer.
Well, so let me ask Sohail Seth. You think a CAG report or an independent regulator's report would have helped the case? In our country, do we believe the Supreme Court even?
Much as I normally agree with Anand, today I have to reciprocate my disagreement. Number 1, there are enough, checks and balances in the Indian economic ecosystem. You have the market regulator, you have, which is SEBI, you have the Reserve Bank of India, which is looking at global transactions, you have the Company Law Board, you have the Registrar of Companies, you have then the courts, if matters go to the court, you have the National Environment Tribunal, the NGT. Point I'm making is, as I said earlier, no one recognizes that when something like this happens, the first thing that is the casualty is brand India. For people then to say, oh, bhai, we are very happy ki see Adani has suffered. And let me again use a Shakespearean ploy or Shakespearean paraphrase Shakespeare here. It's not that they love Adani less. These people hate Modi so much that their hatred for Modi is now spilling over even to economic activities. Didn't Rahul Gandhi all his life after 2014 keep saying "Soot boot ki sarkar"? That irresponsible phrase delayed economic reforms for 2 years. And Navika, you interviewed Arun Jaitley, the late Arun Jaitley. Number 1. Number 2, he kept saying Adani, Ambani, Adani, Ambani. This irresponsible kind of behavior and statements, these must be condoned or what? Can these people give a daily job? Can they give a daily wage to any human being? Other than ice and snow at each other? This level of irresponsible opposition behavior must be curbed. In fact, I'm surprised that these people haven't been hauled over the coals. I mean, there has to be some responsibility.
Well, shoot and scoot certainly is not going to help matters of Indian industry. And clearly, there will be many in this world who will not want India to move forward. The way I look at this is, yes, there was a report. The credibility of the report, the credibility of the agency that puts out such a report is something that should be checked, should be looked at first before, the opposition just picks up the charge and rams into industry. And it could be industry X, Y, Z, anybody. The fact that I actually believe Anand Ranganathan on is that when an attack is made on any XYZ company, the fact is, if it loses value on the markets, then it is not just the company. It is common people who are investors in that company who lose the value. It is India that loses the value. And I also agree with Sohail Seth. The question is, brand India loses. Questions must be asked. Transparency must be ensured. But jumping guns and making every issue a political issue for a slugfest and scoring points just because we are in election season, is that right? That's the question we need to worry about? That's the question we're asking tonight. Is there an investigation required? If it is, it should be sooner than later. But the taste of the pudding is in its eating. The FPO is oversubscribed, and it is again by some institutional buyers who are also foreign investors. So is that reply enough? Well, time will tell. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on the Newshour tonight. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, because it's budget day. And on budget day, we'll really decode it for you. What's in it for you and me? Is it a ravery populist budget, election budget ahead of 2024? Or is it going to be a breathe in, don't breathe out reform budget? Well, what is everybody looking forward to? Make your notes. We'll discuss them tomorrow morning when we see you at 6 a.m. Date with our viewers on budget day. Good night. Be safe.
The Newshour at 9 will be right back after the break.
iQOO 11 हो गया इंडिया में लॉन्च and without wasting anybody's time, it's time to unbox this device. But before I do that, allow me to introduce myself. Hi, you're watching Gadget Times. This is me, Padmaja Jain, और अब करेंगे इस बॉक्स को unbox. And now it's time to unbox this heavy retail box. इससे आपको पता चलेगा कि iQOO 11 के retail box में what all contents do you get inside. Let's begin. सबसे पहले आपको दिखाई देगा स्मार्टफोन, जिसके लिए हम सबसे ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड हैं, एंड दिस इज़ द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट ऑफ कोर्स यू एक्सपेक्ट इनसाइड द रिटेल बॉक्स. इसको निकालते हैं रैपर से जल्दी से. काफ़ी ही बढ़िया कलर ऑप्शन, एकदम एग्जैक्ट प्योर वाइट. इस कलर ऑप्शन का नाम है लेजेंड, जो कंपनी ने दिया है. पंच होल कैमरा यहाँ पे दिखाई दे रहा है ऑन द डिस्प्ले. पर बात तो करेंगे रेयर पैनल की. यहाँ पर आपको दिखाई देगा ये रेसिंग स्ट्राइप. फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर डिवाइस iQOO हैज पार्टनर्ड विद BMW M Sport. तो यहाँ पे आपको वो रेसिंग स्ट्राइप्स दिख रहे हैं. काफी वाइब्रेंट कलर्स हैं, रेड, ब्लैक एंड ब्लू, जहाँ पर iQOO की ब्रांडिंग भी है. कैमरा मॉड्यूल इज रियली वेरी बिग, रेक्टेंगुलर है, जिसमें 3 कैमरास आपको दिखाई दे रहे हैं. यहाँ पर V2 की भी ब्रांडिंग है, क्योंकि कंपनी ने इस स्मार्टफोन में दिया है V2 ग्राफिक चिप. इसी के साथ कैमरास की बात करें तो जो इसका मेन कैमरा है दैट इज अ 50 मेगापिक्सल. एंड इफ यू गाइस कैन लुक एट द कैमरा मॉड्यूल, बहुत ही खूबसूरत सा लग रहा है. और इसकी फील तो बहुत ही बढ़िया है. वाइट है और थोड़ा टेक्सचर्ड है, देखने में काफी सुंदर. और मैंने काफ़ी स्मजेस भी डाल दिए हैं ऑन द डिस्प्ले. इसको स्टार्ट करते हैं, साइड में रखते हैं और फिर देखेंगे बाकी के कंटेंट्स. बॉक्स के अंदर आपको ये सब दिखेगा. सिम इजेक्टर टूल, इसके अलावा ट्रांसपेरेंट प्रोटेक्टिव केस, जो आपके फ़ोन को ऑफ कोर्स प्रोटेक्ट करेगा. यू गाइस शुड यूज इट, आई ऑलवेज यूज इट. वारंटी कार्ड, क्विक स्टार्ट गाइड, ये सब भी मिलता है. और अच्छी बात ये है कि iQOO, एटलीस्ट iQOO इज वन ब्रांड जिसने अभी तक अडेप्टर्स और USB केबल्स पे गिव अप नहीं किया है. सो ऑफ कोर्स यू गेट वन रियली हैवी पावर अडेप्टर. ये है 120 वॉट फास्ट चार्जर. इसको साइड में रखते हैं. इसी के साथ आपको दिखाई देगा USB-C केबल. ओ माय गुडनेस, यहाँ पे एक और चीज भी आपको मिलती है, which is a 3.5 mm to Type C cable. ये OnePlus ने देना शुरू किया था और अभी आपको iQOO के साथ भी मिलेगी. Basically, this means that users will be able to easily use their wired headphones with this smartphone. I really like this. तो ये सब चीजें आपको बॉक्स में मिलती हैं. अब बात करेंगे इस स्मार्टफोन की. आइए शुरू करते हैं. सो वी हैव ऑलरेडी अनबॉक्स द डिवाइस। इतना खूबसूरत ये दिखाई दे रहा है। इसके टेक स्पेक्स की भी जल्दी से बात कर लेते हैं। पीछे आपको जो ये कैमरा मॉड्यूल दिख रहा है, इसमें आपको मिलेंगे 3 कैमराज। मेन कैमरा इज अ 50 मेगापिक्सल अलॉन्ग विद OIS, सो यू डू गेट ऑप्टिकल इमेज स्टेबलाइजेशन। राइट साइड पे फ्रेम देखेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि यहाँ पर है पावर बटन, साथ में वॉल्यूम रॉकर। लेफ्ट साइड पे आपको काफी ही क्लीन फ्रेम दिखता है। On the bottom you get a SIM tray, Type C port and speaker, और साथ में अच्छी बात ये है कि जो मेटल फ्रेम है ऑन द साइड इज वेरी गुड। यहाँ पे आपको एंटेना बैंड्स भी दिखाई देते हैं। प्रोसेसर की बात करें, सो व्हाट कीप्स दिस फोन अलाइव इज स्नैपड्रैगन 8 Gen 2। इस साल आपको ज्यादातर फोन्स में यही दिखाई देगा। ग्राफिक कार्ड के लिए ग्राफिक चिप इन्होंने अलग से डाला है विच इज V2। बैटरी इज गोइंग टू बी वन ऑफ इट्स नोटवर्दी फीचर्स, क्योंकि इसमें आपको मिलता है 120 वॉट फास्ट चार्जिंग टेक सपोर्ट। वहीं पर जो इसका डिस्प्ले है दैट इज एन एमोलेड डिस्प्ले, और साथ में जो इसमें बेजल्स आपको दिखाई देंगे दीज आर वेरी थिन। ये मुझे बहुत पसंद आया। दिस विल इंश्योर स्मूदर व्यूइंग एक्सपीरियंस, तो ये चीज मुझे अच्छी लगी। इस फोन को अच्छे से इस्तेमाल करेंगे और रिव्यू वीडियो आपके सामने जल्द ही लेकर आएंगे। अभी के लिए मजा आ रहा है इस फोन के साथ। लाइट वेट है क्योंकि डिस्पाइट बीइंग अ फ्लैगशिप डिवाइस, तो ये चीजें कुछ अच्छी लगी, बट हो सकता है इसमें कुछ खामियां भी हो। उसके लिए यू रियली नीड टू स्टे ट्यून्ड टू गैजेट टाइम्स, क्योंकि हम रिव्यू वीडियो जल्द ही अपलोड करने वाले हैं। So today we have with us is Oppo A78 बॉक्स काफी ही कूल लग रहा है। ब्लू शेड और ब्लैक कॉम्बिनेशन में ये आता है। अब इसको फटाक से करेंगे अनबॉक्स एंड we'll find out what all contents that you get inside this smartphone retail box. So यहाँ पे सबसे पहले आपको मिलता है एक मिनी बॉक्स, जिसके अंदर एज फॉर फ्रॉम माई एक्सपीरियंस
Good evening and welcome. You are watching the Newshour agenda. I am Padmaja Joshi. In almost 12 hours from now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will be putting out the financial blueprint to take the world's fastest growing economy to newer heights in the year ahead. Addressing the media before the budget session, the Prime Minister said that NDA's economic roadmap will not only strive to fulfill its people's aspirations but also boost hopes with which the world is looking at India. In fact, he exhorted all parliamentarians to put India and its citizens first. He also called on the opposition to participate in constructive dialogue, to have takreer and not just takrar. They can articulate their points of difference, but at least there should be a dialogue. Also, he highlighted the importance of Draupadi Murmu addressing her very first joint sitting of Parliament, which deserves a quiet audience.
केंद्र बिंदु में भी एक ही विचार रहा है, इंडिया फर्स्ट, सिटीजन फर्स्ट। सबसे पहले देश, सबसे पहले देशवासी। ये बजट सत्र में भी तकरार भी रहेगी, लेकिन तकरीर भी तो होनी चाहिए। और मुझे विश्वास है कि हमारे विपक्ष के सभी साथी बड़ी तैयारी के साथ बहुत बारीकी से अध्ययन करके सदन में अपनी बात रखेंगे।
However, in keeping with what has now almost become an unwavering tradition, disruption started even before the session could. Here is what happened. As per tradition, at the start of all important joint sitting, President Draupadi Murmu was to deliver her maiden address to Parliament. But two opposition parties, the BRS and the Aam Aadmi Party, decided to boycott the presidential address altogether, calling it a bundle of lies that ignores real issues. Soon after, there were other Congress members also who said that the president was nothing more than a mouthpiece for the government and wasn't really speaking her mind.
On every front, the country is in a crisis. If you look at rising prices, if you look at the prices of fuel, if you look at the prices of everyday goods, rising unemployment, the youth of this country are not getting any jobs. This is not the reality that gets reflected in the speech. The speech is all about promises and all about statements that are not fulfilled in reality, and this is the reason why Aam Aadmi Party has boycotted the opening speech of the parliament session.
There has to be some kind of democratic voice raised on the issues. We focus on the speeches and the issues that are missing so that the government addresses them. We are saying that the government has failed on all fronts of governance.
Accused of making the president parrot its agenda, the BJP said that the arguments of the boycott brigade are nothing more than hypocritical.
A very historic day when the first ever distinguished tribal president of India, Draupadi Murmu ji, was giving her maiden address while inaugurating the budget session. Some people took it to the greatest low of our parliamentary democracy, namely Aam Aadmi Party and TRS, who chose to boycott. ये आपने बहिष्कार किया क्यों? ये आपने देश के राष्ट्रपति के मर्यादा का अपमान किया है? और कुछ लोग जो बार बार कह रहे हैं कि इसमें सरकार की उपलब्धियों की क्यों चर्चा होती है, तो जो लोग विपक्ष के नेताओं की सरकार है, पार्टियों की सरकार है, जो थोड़ी बहुत है, वहां क्या होता है? जब सदन शुरू होता है बजट सत्र, तो वहां अभिभाषण में क्या पढ़ा जाता है? Those who are making grievances, what is the conduct of their government in their respective states? Do they allow opposition to make it some point? I don't want to take this debate to another level. I understand in many cases, because of intervention of the High Court, the governor was given the opportunity to address the House for the budget session.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
All right, joining me on the debate, Ravi Srivastava and Akash Deepmuni, both political analysts, Rabula Sridhar Reddy, senior leader of the TRS, Tushar Gupta, senior editor Swaraj. But my first question is to national spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Syed Zafar Islam. The opposition now basically saying Dr. Syed Zafar Islam is like, aap unko bolne to dete hain nahi. So they might as well not be sitting there at all. What's the point?
Well, honestly, if you just scan and do a back testing of last few sessions, you will realize that all these people who are making this kind of allegations are baseless. It is them who do not want that session to continue, the House to continue. They are the one who disrupt the parliament. They are the one who wants to be seen on the television that they are disrupting the parliament. They come with a hoarding. They come with a lot of whistles and many other instruments only to make noise there. And they disrupt the parliament time and again. We have always demonstrated that we are the one who are keen to discuss every issue they want to discuss. In the Business Advisory Committee, every time it is being discussed and they agreed, there is a meeting of minds, yes, we will discuss on these issues. And once we want to discuss that issue, they want to disrupt the parliament, they don't let the parliament function. So it is for them to introspect why they do not want to discuss the issues which they want to discuss, why they are just resorting to disrupt the parliament only to be seen on the news channel and the newspaper that they are the one who is disrupting the parliament, because they feel that if they do this, perhaps they will get more attention from the people, but people will give more attention only to discard you and your approach and your policy to disrupt the parliament, because this is the place where the people have expectation. Their voice will be heard, their issues will be discussed, their issues will get resolved, and that's why all the people of this great country expect the parliamentarians and particularly the opposition parties to behave in a manner that they should be behaving. But unfortunately,
Mr. Reddy, when in the all-party meeting, the Business Advisory Committee, there is a meeting of minds. The government says you have 4 or 5 major issues. We are ready to have a dialogue on them. Then why the boycott? What is achieved? Mr. Reddy.
See, we are not, as they were saying, we are not against the president. We have boycotted the session only as a mark of protest, as a democratic protest against the failures of the Narendra Modi's government. And we have seen many speeches in the past also. Nothing become a reality. And the speech which contained, of the president's speech today, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Vishwas, it become a mere slogan, a beautiful slogan, and nothing become a reality in this. And at the same time, they are saying about we have insulted the president, or it is not respecting the president. I wanted to remind you, Honorable President has visited Hyderabad in the recent past, and our government gave a grand welcome. It is not the question of disrespecting the chair of the president. It is against the Narendra Modi government's failure. And today's speech, whatever the speech contents you have seen, is exactly the government is functioning opposite to that. As I said, sabka saath, sabka vikas.
Okay.
As I said, the employment issues, and we talk about the selective favoritism to some states and not supporting non-BJP ruled states, and especially when it comes to Telangana, and whatever promises were made during the bifurcation to Telangana, nothing was honored. Neither Niti Aayog recommendations, nor the recommendations of the Finance Commission, and you don't give us any support, and you stall the funds to our state. So why would we support? At the same time,
Sayyid Zafar Islam, why are you spinning a democratic protest as an insult to the president? You're trying to give it a political spin. All that these opposition parties are doing, they're exercising democratic right.
Absolutely. See, here I made it very categorically.
It is a very irresponsible statement coming from a...
Yes, Sayyid Zafar Islam.
It is a very, very irresponsible statement coming from a... No, I'm saying that it is a very irresponsible statement coming from a representative of a political party. You know that she comes from a tribal background. She is the one. She is a woman.
Why do you always
her maiden speech, even the tradition and the protocol, and the protocol, what is being followed. Please do not interrupt me. Please do not interrupt me. Let me complete. Then you can have your own.
This is not fair, my dear.
In the parliament, there is a protocol. Whoever is making the maiden speech, they are not interrupted. They are being given opportunity to speak. I was also had been the member of parliament. I have spoken for 30 minutes as my maiden speech. And yet nobody interrupted me. Please, can you keep your mouth shut, please, for a moment? You are just making this kind of statement only to look. We have done everything, but what have you done? You have to introspect. You have disrespected the honorable president of our great country. You know that it is a sin you have committed and your party has committed, and you will be punished by the people of this great country. You must understand that. There is a quorum, there is a protocol that when the president makes a speech, every single parliamentarian attends the session. But you not only boycotted it, you also made a statement outside the parliament, which was totally unwarranted. And that only suggests that you people
Okay, one at a time, please. One at a time, sir. I'll give you time. I'll give you time, Mr. Reddy, to respond. Okay. I'll give you time to respond. Finish your point. Yes, Sayyid Zafar Islam.
Can you just tell Mr. Reddy that yeah. So all I'm saying that this is totally irresponsible, unwarranted behavior of a political party, be it AAP or BRS. They have been completely exposed that they do not follow in the democratic process, and that's when they have insulted.
Okay, Mr. Reddy, there are some things that are sacrosanct. There are some things that are sacrosanct. For example, the importance of listening to the president's address on the first day. It's not even political.
No, at the end of the day, that speech, what was delivered by Honorable President, reflects the government's agenda. And Modi government...
But that will be true for you also, sir, in Telangana. People will say that of you in Telangana also, that the speech that you give the governor, then it's going to be called government agenda and other parties are going to walk out.
Whatever they promised in the past to the country, whether Pakka houses to the poor, and employment, and everything is a big failure.
Oh my God!
The inflation, the unemployment rate, and today you talk about scams. There are no scams. A government which is not ready to even give the account of PM cares.
Okay.
Speaking about having no scams.
Okay, let me open this up. Tushar Gupta, is nothing sacrosanct anymore, and is the dialogue between the opposition and the government at the center broken beyond repair? This is a given. If you just take a look at maybe the last 6-7 sessions, barely is there a session when there isn't a walkout, disruption, throwing of papers, etc. It's at a point of no return.
Good evening, Padmaja. Padmaja, I think the debate started with someone saying that the party staged a walkout because they're not allowed to speak in the parliament. Now, last I checked, the Aam Aadmi Party had no MPs in the Lok Sabha. They have absolutely no MPs in the Lok Sabha, a big zero. So who is not allowed to speak? And as far as I can remember right, Raghav Chadha made a very immature comment last year in the Rajya Sabha, and the Finance Minister of India was courteous enough to answer him point by point, to explain him economics as if you would to a kindergarten kid, point by point. So I don't understand where this theory about the parliamentarians not being allowed to speak comes from. Number two, Forget the president also for a second, Padmaja. These 2 days were about the budget. This was not about the budget of the BJP ruled states. This was not about the budget of the people who vote for Narendra Modi. This was the budget of India. Now they could have walked out of the session on 2nd February, no one would have cared. But today when the economic survey was stable, which is a primer on the economy, and there are AAP and BRS spokespersons shouting from the top of the roof that the government has done absolutely nothing on the economic front. Today was their day, or tomorrow would have been their day to ask some tough questions in the media, but they should have been in the session. Why not? Why not be a part of the budget that's for people of India, including the people that are under the states governed by Aam Aadmi Party and the states governed by BRS? Why not?
Padmaja today.
Okay, talk on facts. Yes, Akashdeep Muni.
Yeah, there was a multi-party meeting of all the parties.
Okay, hold on a second. Let Akashdeep Muni come back with his first rebuttal. Then you can make your second point, Tushar. First rebuttal, Akashdeep Muni. Yes.
Let me complete. You know, Tusharji, recently there was a multi-party meeting, all-party meeting. There, the member of parliament from for Aam Aadmi Party raised, Sanjay ji raised a particular issue which has been in news recently regarding the Adani controversy. He said that this type of issue can affect our public sector units like LIC and SBI, which will be in effect, affecting the common man. What he said is that there should be a discussion in the parliament regarding that. The government did not answer that will they have a discussion or not have a discussion. This, then he said that let's conduct a JPC, Joint Parliamentary Committee. Then the government did not reply on that even. So when in a democratic setup, what the opposition has the right, the opposition has the option rather than to walk out or boycott. And the first point. Second point, just imagine that boycotting is very bad thing. Okay, BJP boycotted in 2013 the whole parliament session. They boycott speaker session. They boycott the meetings called by the Parliamentary Affairs Committee. In 2010, they boycotted even the Prime Minister called for a discussion. Interestingly, and coming on to the main point that why actually...
Well, you boycott the session, but this was the President's address. And this is more a custom than the government's business. The President's address is not the government's business. This is basically a nicety.
No. The President's address is given to her by the cabinet, and at present the cabinet is headed by the Prime Minister.
Okay, Tushar Gupta responding. Yes. I have to say before Tushar Gupta responds, sitting in the opposition at the center, Akashdeep Muni, the Aam Aadmi Party says, hold on Tushar Gupta, the Aam Aadmi Party says, oh, the opposition is being muzzled. However, you have conveniently forgotten that just last month, during the Delhi Assembly session, when all the BJP MLAs were marshalled out, what did the speaker say? The speaker said the LG doesn't allow Aam Aadmi Party to speak, so you cannot fault me for not allowing the BJP MLAs to speak. This is what the speaker said. But anyway, democracy, freedom of speech is all very subjective depending on where you sit, treasury benches or the opposition benches. Anyhow, go on. Let's limit ourselves to Parliament. Tushar Gupta, yes.
Padmaja, firstly, the Aam Aadmi Party should stop calling itself the opposition. They have 0 MPs in the Lok Sabha. Let me remind that to your viewers. Number 2, they want to discuss the Adani business factor. What do they want to discuss with the Joint Parliamentary Committee? There is no provable scam here, so there is no question of a Joint Parliamentary Committee. Number 2, they say they want to discuss the Hindenburg report. The FPO has been oversubscribed today. The company has come out with a 400-page report as a rebuttal, so there is nothing to discuss. And number 3, on a day as important as the budget, why would the Aam Aadmi Party want to take the focus away from the budget of the people of India to a private business? Do they want the government in the center to interfere in private businesses? Is that their ideology? My simple question, Padmaja, is that today was the budget of India. The Aam Aadmi Party can have all the disagreements with the BJP, but they should have sit in the parliament. They should have remained in the parliament for the sake of people in Punjab, for the sake of the people in Delhi, the very people they govern as the state government. Why did they not remain in the parliament?
Okay, Ravi Srivastava, if there is any indication, it came from the Prime Minister himself when he said right at the beginning कि तकरार की जगह तकरीर भी होने चाहिए. Yesterday, again in the all-party meeting, when you had the Minister, Parliamentary Affairs Minister come out and speak, he said that there were 3-4 issues which were raised. The government is ready for a discussion on all of them. But again, I come back to the point that today was not even about having a discussion. Today was not about talking about Adani or BBC or China. Today, very simply, was about the President's speech which precedes the budget. That's it. That is all that it was limited to. And more specifically, the historical importance which the Prime Minister underlined, that we have our first tribal community's lady president making her maiden address. Simple decency provides that you sit there and listen to it. Why not?
That's your definition of decency. The first thing is that the word being used, takreer, is a wrong translation altogether. If Prime Minister has used this word, it's a wrong word. Takreer means a speech, bhashan. It is not dialogue. I don't know who has translated that. Second thing is that you are talking about a tribal lady. Why should always be this jati should be discussed of the president? She is an honorable president and she is a woman. I think that's more than enough. Why to discuss about she is a tribal? We have done this. We have brought her as a president. She is a tribal.
Sir, I think that ship sailed the day everyone decided to smash Brahminical patriarchy. But let's limit ourselves. Okay, even if it's not a tribal president, she is the president making a speech. It is not about highlighting the government's failures or what the government is doing. Listen to the president, listen to the budget, and then put the government on the mat.
Thousands and lakhs of tribal women are selling the vegetable, and with their meager earning which they are depositing in savings bank of their State Bank of India or LIC for that matter, which are in danger.
Sir, where is this roundabout argument that you have come from? Okay, hold on a second, please let's have a more reasonable debate. I don't know where you've taken this. It all boils down to, let me bring back Akashdeep Muni, because earlier we were talking about the Aam Aadmi Party and the BRS. Okay, Syed Zafar Islam responding. Syed Zafar Islam, yes.
I do not understand what is the reservation he has. It is not a fact that we are narrating to the people of this great country that she comes from a tribal background. And historically, if we just
why is it needed every day? Is it needed every day?
In India, never ever been
Sir, please one at a time.
Anybody coming from the tribal background have been anybody who is coming from tribal background have been given have been put in position of strength. Never. It is our party, it is our government, it is our Honorable Prime Minister's thought process that we must give opportunity to everyone. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and that process we have followed to the T. That's why we have given representation and also made president purely because she comes from a background tribal background which have never been given this kind of position and representation.
And Akashdeep Muni, also there is the examples of the past being given. Because I mentioned the Delhi Assembly, you would remember there was the Chief Minister who said, "Kaun hai ye LG? कहां से आ गया ये LG? हमारे सिर पर बैठ के आ गया LG?" And now the president.
10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. Syed Zafar Islam. 10 seconds, and I'll come to Akashdeep Muni. 10 seconds. Finish your point. Yes.
Also, there somebody was talking about that we have disrupted the parliament. We have not boycotted the parliament. Yes, that is your right. You can do it. But we have never boycotted the president's speech, president's address. That is something which we want to know. We want you to know, and we want the people of this great country.
Okay, respond. Akashdeep Muni. From calling the LG, kaun hai LG, to now even the president. Yes, Akashdeep Muni.
We respect the president, but the speech was given by the cabinet minister, so it was the government speech. That is why we'll boycott.
So then we should just dismantle the entire constitutional structure, sir. Then the same thing will be said of your government in Punjab. It will be said of the Aam Aadmi Party government in Punjab, the BRS government in Telangana, the YSRCP government in Andhra Pradesh, the DMK government in Tamil Nadu.
I'll answer. Zafar Islam ji, first of all, I come from the same tribal state from where our honorable president comes. So at least you will acknowledge my request of initiating a JPC if possible, or at least a charcha on the floor of parliament on the issue of Adani. I hope it will be happening. This is from Akash Dipuni, from a proud Odia, from a tribal state from where President Murmu belongs. And second thing, our Padmaja ji, you were asking that then we should dismantle everything. We have no problem with. We respect the president like anything. Because the problem is that there has been a controversy on which a member of parliament in an all-party meeting requested a charcha on the floor of parliament. Till now, I really revere our Prime Minister who says that charcha honi chahiye, charcha karaiye, ये particular issue पे हम सारे meetings attend करेंगे. एक JPC appoint करा दीजिए, नहीं करा पाए चर्चा ही करा दीजिए.
Okay, तुषार गुप्ता.
करा देंगे.
तुषार गुप्ता.
Padmaja, one point. I'm sensing the Aam Aadmi Party's understanding of the constitution is as good as their understanding of the economy. But I have a simple question to ask of the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson, since he's so concerned about the whole Adani fiasco. Tell me the exposure of LIC to Adani.
Okay, wait. Before you get started on that, both of you are there. You want to have a charcha. I don't know about Syed Zafar Islam, but I am very willing to have a charcha, and that's exactly what we are headed towards next. Today, of course, there was another tradition, parliamentary tradition, that was broken. Whether it was in the interest of a democratic protest or goes against the democratic traditions of our country, I leave that to your wisdom. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me on Debate 1. So, ROCPA allegations of fraud by short seller Hindenburg Research. Gautam Adani's flagship firm today recorded a $2.5 billion share sale, becoming India's largest follow-on public offering. The shares were oversubscribed by 112%, a reflection of the trust in the brand, or that's what the brand said. The stakes were high for Adani, who has already suffered one of the world's biggest ever declines in personal wealth, and a successful deal signals that he still has the ability to attract investors. In fact, the FPO got the backing from non-institutional investors as well, with the subscription of over 32% of the shares reserved for them. A failure to meet the fundraising goal would have been a major blow to Adani's prestige and market prospects, as it comes just days after Hindenburg Research Group claimed that the group was engaged in brazen stock manipulation for decades, allegations that were summarily dismissed as mischievous by the chairman.
Sir, today we have seen that Hindenburg's, that controversy is going on. You have already given a very long clarification on this thing. Anything you want to convey, because you feel that it's an attack on India?
Beside, basically, of course, it is attack on India is one part, but ultimately, end of the day, we have completed our FPO, irrespective of what basically they have said, and I am really thankful to all our investors.
Now, the business world battles have also sparked a political slugfest, with the opposition parties alleging state patronage and collusion behind the alleged fraud.
And this is something which the LIC management should also take it up very seriously. And why don't we do an ED and CBI investigation on this? Who's stopping them?
What reply Mr. Adani is giving just to satisfy his shareholders, it is not important. I have already demanded a joint parliamentary committee should be constituted by the government and it should be investigated.
भारत सरकार को चाहिए कि अविलंब अडानी के जो शेयर्स गिर रहे हैं उस पर लगाम के लिए सरकार के स्तर से जो LIC और SBI को माध्यम बनाया गया है उस पर रोक लगाई जाए, और अडानी जैसे जो कंपनियां सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपने लाभ के लिए भारत में अपने हिसाब से काम कर रही है उस पर रोक लगाई जाए.
While facing the opposition's onslaught, the BJP has highlighted how the very same parties who are today gunning for Adani show no compunctions while accepting the same gross investment.
Well, they have been selective on the subject, and there's no harm they can raise the issue in the parliament, but why being selective? When it comes to the Congress-ruled states, then the agenda is different, and when it comes to other part of the country, the agenda is different. It categorically shows that agenda is not a particular businessman, agenda is somewhere else. But let that process happen and let the truth come out. But fact is that they are doing it selectively. But when it comes to Rajasthan or Chhattisgarh, they have different angle to it. And when it comes to other states, they have a different dimension to it.
You're watching the News Hour at 10. Debate number 2 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Okay, Ravi Srivastava and Akash Muni continue with us. We are joined by author Anurag Naidu. My first question is Tushar Gupta, senior editor of Swaraj, because Tushar, you also track the markets and you track the economy. Is it fair for the group to claim vindication just because they've been oversubscribed?
Well, absolutely. Why not? If the Hindenburg report was any true, the investors, be it the institutional investors or the retail investors, all of them would have stayed away. But the FPO today has been oversubscribed. And if you look at Adani, everyone is talking about 1/4 of its market value being wiped out. It's being the end of the company, and someone was talking about LIC. Padmaja, even the LIC holdings today are in a profit. Even after the Adani share crashing after the Hindenburg report, the short sellers having a riot, the LIC holders, the LIC investments in Adani is actually at a profit. So I would absolutely say that the group is vindicated. But a more important point, Padmaja, we are talking about Adani, and in India we have a lot of young investors who get rattled by this news. If you look at the share prices of Netflix, which is something we all know about, Facebook, you look at the share prices since the beginning of the pandemic and where they are today, and the volatility that has been witnessed, especially with respect to the big tech shares, it's way more than what Adani has seen in the last 4 days. But are these companies not credible? Are these companies not generating revenue? Are these companies working against the cause of the nation? Are these companies being supplied by some, favorable government? Absolutely not. That's how the share market works, fortunately or unfortunately. That's how investor money works, and that's the risk the investors want to take. So today, when the FPO has been oversubscribed, what I don't understand is why still some opposition parties want the center to interfere in Adani's private business.
Okay, Ravi Srivastava, opening point, first of all, none of the charges have stuck because clearly investors still have confidence in the company. Just like ultimate validation for a neta is at the ballot box, the EVM, the ultimate validation for a businessman is the trust of his or her investors.
The ultimate trust of the investor will be seen on the Sensex, on the stock market, that how far Mr. Adani can sustain. Last few days, 3 lakh crores worth of capital has been already lost. Now, whose loss is that? Which investor's loss is that? Which government's loss is that? Whose money has been burnt? I saw one cartoon yesterday only that there was Adani's share available on the stock market is 2,800 rupees and the FPO is for 3,200 rupees. And people are queuing up for 3,200 rupees share. What kind of sanity is this? There is nothing. There is a crony capitalism. Mr. Adani has grown beyond proposition because of only his connivance with the ruling government at this moment. Mr. Modi using his aircraft, Mr. Modi providing him all kind of assistance.
So hold on a second, let me just understand, and I'm asking you this purely as a layperson. If you yourself are saying, sir, that somebody loses share market value, the common man suffers, then why are you so happy with the shares falling? And why are you giving so much credibility to a report that is leading to those shares falling? Because ultimately it's the common man who suffers.
I'm saying because this is happening to Mr. Adani. This has not happened to Tata, this has not happened to Birla, for that matter. Why? Ask me a question.
But it is happening because there is a report which the company has called a malicious hate job.
Exactly.
Which you are now backing.
No, that is where the government role comes in. When Movement SAB started the proceedings against Adani's investigation 2 years before, where are the reports?
Okay, Tushar, respond.
Why not?
Respond and also clarify. Tushar Gupta.
Investigate it immediately.
Padmaja, here is an interesting perspective. Padmaja, all the critics and everyone in the opposition is saying that Adani is getting favors from the government of the day. That is what they are claiming. My simple question as a layman, as someone who's not, a Raghuram Rajan is, if Adani is indeed being favored by the Modi government, wouldn't investment in Adani be risky given we are 15 months away from the national elections? If you are so firm in believing that Adani is supported by the government, why would you want him to be invested in 15 months before the national elections? What if the government of the day does not remain? And yet the investors are showing their confidence. And again, I'll break it down for Mr. Srivastav here. Mr. Srivastav, LIC's value of purchased equity in Adani was 30,000 crore. That was the value at which they purchased. The value of that equity today is 56,000 crore rupees. So even with all the capital being wiped out, the way you're saying the LIC is in profit with Adani shares, please understand.
Lies are circulated by you people. What is the exposure? 2.5 lakh crore loans against the assets of 2.31 lakh crore. And what is the valuation?
Okay, Mr. Srivastav, I asked this. Mr. Srivastav, Mr. Srivastav.
Have you heard about the PMC bank?
Okay, one at a time.
No, it doesn't work that way, Mr. Srivastav.
Tushar Gupta.
Padmaja, my simple question to Mr. Srivastav is, can he tell the percentage of the LIC exposure to Adani in percentage as a share of the total holdings? Just tell me the percentage of the LIC exposure to Adani.
Go on, Mr. Srivastav. It's a straight enough question. Ravi Srivastav.
What is that question? Please tell me. Tell me the question.
Repeat, Tushar Gupta.
Repeat it.
What is the percentage value of LIC in Adani holdings as compared to the total holdings? You say that people will be on the road, this is crony capitalism, blah blah blah, we people spread lies. You tell me the value of LIC holding as a share of the total holdings in percentage when it comes to Adani. Simple, straightforward question. LIC had a press release about this yesterday. Tell us.
Information, it is 87,000 crore. It may be even 5% of the LIC's capital. But issue
Tell us in percentage. Tell us in percentage.
You tell the percentage.
In percentage.
You tell the percentage.
Less than 1%. Padmaja,
It's 0.975%. Okay, Mr. Srivastav, I think, has read the absolute numbers. You're putting him on a spot and it's not fair. It's 0.975%. But anyhow, should there be, Anurag Naidu, hold on a second. This is just to put things in perspective. That is as far as the percentage exposure is concerned. But should there be, Anurag Naidu, now an investigation by a joint parliamentary committee, as they say in Hindi, doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani?
Padmaja, I have a strong objection. Why should we even talk about doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani on a foreign report, whether it is Hindenburg or any other report for that matter? Why should we be so much in panic? Because, you know, let's also understand, Padmaja, of late, the kind of ground India has been gaining on an international platform through this excellent performance and oratory skills by our External Affairs Minister. He's putting India on a global footprint where he's telling that India's growth story is unprecedented and we are ready to lead the world. So entire focus of the world today is on India. Why should we rule out the possibility of a foreign involvement behind this report in order to attack one of the India's biggest success stories of all time? So if you have to put a request for a JPC or a CBI or an ED, bring out something which is an evidence of an internal national importance that you have from the ground. All these things, even I would be of the view that, of course, this course correction of an FPO is an exercise that Adani did more or less to show the world the confidence Indian subscribers or the investors has on the company, and they've proven so. But they don't have to do it. They had to do it because an external agency came in and started questioning the integrity. So done and dusted. If you have really some kind of an iota of research done, and if you have an evidence, please put it on even Times Now or any other national media that you.
But here is the more substantial. Irrespective of whether it is a foreign investigation or a foreign report or an Indian report, I have a fundamentally very different question, Akash Deep Muni. Now let's assume for a moment that the charges are right. And this is tainted money, there is manipulation, there is stock market manipulation, there is misrepresentation. So essentially the company is tainted, its money is tainted. Then why is it that you have the same tainted money being taken from the Adani group in Chhattisgarh, in Rajasthan, in Maharashtra, when the last government, the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi, was there in the seat, in Kerala, communists for heaven's sake, are taking Adani money. West Bengal, Tamil Nadu. Why? So if the money is so bad and it is people's money and it is loot money, then why are all the same parties who are calling it a loot money are then taking that money and investing it in their state?
I'll reply. First of all, I'll not attach these adjectives. These adjectives are attached by fools. I will not do it. I think one point which my friend Tusharji was saying and my friend now who is with us was saying, that why this what is the problem in this? Because investors have shown their credit.
No, why are you dodging my question? Why are you dodging my question? I am not asking you that question. My question to you is that Trinamool Congress is demanding a parliamentary investigation into the finances of this group. Then how can the same Trinamool Congress take that same group and say, please come and develop my state, invest in my state?
I'll tell you.
भाई अगर ये LIC और लोगों का लूटा हुआ पैसा है तो वो पैसा लेके अपने स्टेट में क्यों लगा रहे हो? मत लगाओ.
मैं आपको बताता हूँ, it's not about लोगों का लूटा हुआ पैसा. It's about, I'll be going on the specifics. What is the problem in this particular, why people are having a problem?
But sir, I already know the specifics. They are running in the graphics. My question is, now that you have outlined your very specific objections and your very specific fears about the businesses. So here's the thing, sir. Okay? Here's the thing. I am a total layperson, but as I sit there and I look at business transactions, I can only see money. A businessman has money. Now I have politicians telling me that this money is ill-gotten money. But if it is ill-gotten money, why are you accepting that money? Why are those companies, why are those parties accepting that money? And what tune of money? Here is the tune of money. Adani Ports and Special Economic Zone was selected in September 2022 to develop the Tajpur Deep Sea Port. Do you know how much this deep sea port is worth? This investment will entail, this greenfield project will entail a total investment of $3.1 billion. $3.1 billion.
It is not about investment. It is about that Adani Group does not have one company. There are many companies and specific companies.
अरे but आदमी तो वही है, पैसा तो उसी का है. या वो अदानी पोर्ट्स हो या अदानी ग्रीन हो या अदानी गैस हो, जेब में तो एक ही जा रही है.
Padmaja, even now they have
Adani Group has
don't want investment from Adani.
By shell companies.
Are it's all the more reason you should not take his money. So much ghapla, so much shell, so much problem. Why are you taking that money?
It's not about taking. Investment is not taking. Investment is they are investing in a state. That is, there is no.
Arey investment to bhai.
They get a profit.
Okay.
Who is inviting?
Okay, Anurag Naidu. You know, I really, sir, I am pretty certain that you are very clever and you know, आप investment, ये तो ये हुआ ना कि मैं किसी की जेब काट करके मैं उसका FD खोल लूँ तो वो ठीक थोड़ा हो जाएगा. कि भाई हाँ मैंने जेब काटी बट मैंने उसका FD खोल दिया तो अब वो सब सफेद हो गया.
मैडम इन्वेस्टमेंट पे टैक्स रेट अलग होते हैं, पैसा लेने का टैक्स रेट अलग होते हैं, दोनों अलग अलग.
तुषार गुप्ता, what do you make of this logic? So suddenly we are being told that वो पैसा गंदा है, मोदी सरकार मदद कर रही है, बट जो बंगाल में, केरला में, छत्तीसगढ़ में पैसा आ रहा है वो कोशर पैसा है, वो अच्छा पैसा है.
Padmaja, let me give you a fun fact and let's focus on that one state which is governed by the Aam Aadmi Party. You know, in Punjab, where do the farmers go to have their wheat procured by the FCI, the Food Corporation of India? They go to the silos which ironically are operated by Adani's logistics company. In Punjab, I'm telling you. Now, if the Aam Aadmi Party is going to sit here and pretend that everything is unholy about the Adani company, I'm just going to sit here and laugh. There is no other way of responding to it. And the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson said that there are shell companies. Now, that's a very huge accusation, mind you. If he indeed has the evidence for shell companies, like Arvind Kejriwal had his 300-page proof in 2013, why is he not going to the SEBI? Why is he not going to the CBI? Why is he not going to the regulators? The Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson on national television is claiming that Adani money is routed through shell companies. If he has the evidence, Why is he not going to the regulators? Or is he indulging in fear mongering on national television for a political purpose? That's the question.
I'm going to leave it at that. I am going to leave it at that. As a final food for thought, let me also say that today we had some more political parties, most notably I just heard Abhishek Banerjee of the Trinamool Congress say that there should be an investigation by the ED and the CBI. Let me remind you that just last year, the same Trinamool Congress held a press conference and said that the ED is nothing more than a handmaiden of the BJP. It is the washing machine where anyone who leaves the TMC and joins the BJP becomes like Lord Ram himself. Now that same ED is being exhorted to investigate Adani's. How much of it is fact and how much of it is politics, I leave to your wisdom. Thanks for watching.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
What's up guys, it's a great day, it's a beautiful day और आप सब
Alright, this is not your vlog Akash, this is Gadget Times. I welcome you all. I am Pavni Jain and this is our very special series where we are collaborating.
You're watching the News Hour at 10.
President Draupadi Murmu delivered her maiden speech in Parliament ahead of the Union Budget, highlighting the achievements of the NDA government. President Murmu highlighted the achievements under the current NDA regime, saying that India was growing faster and was on the path of Atmanirbharta. The economic survey was tabled in Parliament a day ahead of the budget. The government has projected a GDP growth rate between 6% and 6.8% in the next financial year. Ayodhya's famous temple, the Tapaswi Chowni, has burnt an effigy of Swami Prasad Maurya to protest against his objectionable statements against Sanatan Dharma and Ramcharitmanas. Oreva founder Jaisukh Patel, who is named in the charge sheet in the Morbi Bridge tragedy, has been sent into judicial custody. This comes after he surrendered in court in Morbi.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
So guys, आज हम हैं यहाँ पे with the Galaxy A14 5G and ये Samsung का नया बजट स्मार्टफोन है. Let's see, इसको अनबॉक्स करते हैं. जैसे कि देख सकते हैं इस डब्बे में एक फ़ोन है और नथिंग नीचे ऊपर